My name is Jaylani, and I live with my husband, Theodore. We run a restaurant called Sunflower, which my grandfather took care of for many years. It's a popular place with many regular customers who have loved it for a long time. Sadly, my grandfather had cancer but didn't let it stop him from working at Sunflower. Even when he was very sick, he served delicious food and smiled while chatting with the customers. Surrounded by family, he passed away peacefully. He left me, his granddaughter, in charge of the restaurant. Knowing his time was near, he wrote a will with clear instructions about what to do with the restaurant. After my grandfather's passing, I decided to take over Sunflower. Fortunately, the customers kept coming, and the employees continued to work hard. I had watched my grandfather cook all my life, so I felt confident I could make the same tasty dishes. The regulars were happy and told me, "This tastes just like your grandfather's cooking. It feels like he's still here." Sunflower was doing well, just like when my grandfather was alive, and I was more motivated than ever. However, since my grandfather died, my husband began to feel unhappy. He thought a man should own the restaurant and didn't understand why it was in my name. I told him, "I'm his granddaughter, so it belongs to me. We're running it together, so it doesn't really matter." It seemed my husband wanted to be the owner himself and sometimes expressed his frustration, but I was the one who cooked, while he handled the cash register, deliveries, and shopping. I felt that an owner who couldn't cook didn't really fit. I could have been more flexible, but I didn't want to go against my grandfather's wishes. One busy day at the restaurant, my husband's younger brother visited. He hadn't been around for a while and was known to be a bit of a troublemaker. He had left last year to find a job, but came back after quitting. My husband was happy to see him, but I found him hard to deal with. In our hometown, I heard that an old man had passed away, and my brother-in-law joked, "So, your wife is running the shop now? That's hilarious." He laughed loudly, not noticing the annoyed looks from the customers. I found it hard to engage with him and decided to ignore his comments since we were family. He then asked if his meal was free, saying, "Since we're family, right?" I reluctantly agreed, and he ate a huge meal, drank beer, and left without paying. That's how unreasonable he was. Our relatives came to the restaurant too, but they always paid. I told my husband, "It's not fair to let only your brother eat for free. Please charge him next time." My husband responded, "It's fine. He doesn't have money. It's okay to give him a break." He seemed to side with his brother. After that, my brother-in-law came to the restaurant regularly and ate without paying every time. I warned my husband, but he wouldn't listen. My insistence made my husband grumpy, and we started to argue more. My brother-in-law began visiting even more often, and each time, he whispered with my husband in the back of the kitchen. I suspected they were talking badly about me. I tried to focus on my cooking while stealing glances at them. One day, my brother-in-law said to my husband, "Can't we make this restaurant yours, bro? The name is in your wife's name, but it's in a good location with many customers. Let's make it your restaurant and keep all the profits. It must be hard being under your wife's thumb." My brother-in-law was trying to take advantage of the problems in our marriage to get my husband on his side. They started plotting something together. The next day was our restaurant's day off, and my husband left early, leaving me alone. Even though it was my day off, I remembered that the kitchen was messy, so I decided to go to the restaurant and spend the day cleaning up. While cleaning, I tried to open the restaurant door and found it unlocked. I thought I must have forgotten to lock it the day before, so I hurried inside. To my surprise, I found my husband and brother-in-law there. "Oh, you're here. I didn't expect to see you both since it's our day off. What are you doing?" I asked. They smirked as if they were hiding something. "Actually, we need to talk," my husband said. "Since you took over the restaurant, you've been acting too proud, and it's bothering us." "I'm not being proud," I replied, feeling frustrated. "Yes, you are," my brother-in-law chimed in. "You're happy because the restaurant is doing well." "What are you trying to say?" I asked, feeling confused. They spoke to me like they were mocking me, which only made me angrier. Then, my husband pulled out some documents and spread them on the table. "I'm sick of your attitude. Let's get a divorce," he said, surprising me with a filled-out divorce application. "Huh? What do you mean?" I stammered, unable to understand what was happening. My first thought was about the restaurant. I knew it would be hard to run it alone after a divorce, especially with only a few employees. "This is too sudden. I don't understand," I exclaimed. "It would be hard for me to keep the restaurant running alone." "We're going to buy this restaurant from you and start fresh," my husband said. "We want you to leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This restaurant was protected by my grandfather. The profits are good enough. We should keep running it for the customers. So, you don't plan to grow? This restaurant will go out of business if you don't do something. I want to start a new restaurant, no matter what, he insisted. I realized my husband had been influenced by his brother. Well, we'll buy this restaurant for whatever price you want, my brother-in-law said. We'll earn it back quickly, so any price is fine. I couldn't stand their bullying any longer. Alright, if that's the case, I'll sell it for $50,000, but please wait for 2 weeks while I prepare the divorce papers and the contract, and during those 2 weeks, neither of you should come to the restaurant. When I said I was selling the restaurant, they were excited, not realizing I had my own reasons. In the meantime, I managed to run the restaurant by myself. Where's your husband? A customer asked. Well, we're actually getting a divorce, I replied. What, so suddenly? Will you be running Sunflower alone then? No, my husband is buying the restaurant, and I'll be leaving in 2 weeks. The customers were surprised and genuinely disappointed when they heard the news, but I quickly handed out flyers I had prepared, which calmed their worries. 2 weeks later, I presented the contract to sell the restaurant and the divorce papers to my husband. There are no complaints about this, right? I asked as he signed the contract. $50,000, huh? I'll transfer the money to your account right now, he replied, sounding pleased. Now this is my shop, he said, looking happy alongside his brother. While they celebrated, I packed up my things and left the restaurant. I was excited to see what they would do next. My ex-husband and brother-in-law immediately took over running the restaurant. We've explained the situation to the employees, they said. Even without Jaylani, the shop should run fine. Alright, let's make some money. They prepared enthusiastically for the day, but when 10 o'clock came, the usual opening time, things didn't go as planned. Why aren't the customers coming? My ex-husband wondered. The usual crowd was missing, and the employees, who were always reliable, weren't there either. He tried calling them, but no one answered. They had never faced this situation before, and panic set in. My ex-husband noticed a regular customer walking by and called out, "Hey, you're our customer, right?" Yeah, I've been worried because you haven't opened yet. What's going on?" the customer replied. "Come on in," my ex-husband urged, trying to sound welcoming. "Didn't you say your wife quit?" "I came here for her cooking, so I might not come anymore," the customer said. "Don't say that. We'll definitely serve something delicious," he insisted, forcing the customer to step inside. The customer reluctantly entered and looked at the menu. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "Since I'm the owner now, I decided to change the menu completely," my ex-husband said. The traditional sunflower set meals were gone, replaced by items with foreign names that were hard to understand, which made the customer less enthusiastic. "I'll have this steak," the customer finally decided. Understood. My ex-husband and brother-in-law started cooking with excitement. The customer, who had never seen my ex-husband cook before, waited anxiously. "Hey, is it ready yet?" the customer asked after a long wait. "Sorry for the wait," my ex-husband replied. Finally, after 40 minutes, the meal was ready. When the steak was served, the customer was shocked. There were only 3 small pieces of meat on the plate. The outside was burnt, and the inside was raw. There was no sauce, just a bowl of bread and soup. "We used high-quality ingredients," my ex-husband explained, "so we only used salt and pepper for seasoning. We cooked it to bring out the aroma on the outside and enjoy the rare inside." The customer didn't touch the steak, which looked like a failed dish at first glance. Upon closer inspection, the soup seemed to be instant. "I'm sorry, but I can't eat this," the unhappy customer said, standing up to leave. My ex-husband was shocked that not a single bite was taken. "Customer, you still have to pay. That will be $30, he demanded. $30? You're joking. I can't pay for this awful meal," the furious customer shouted before storming out of the restaurant. My ex-husband and his brother were stunned by what had just happened. They quickly realized they were in trouble. Neither my ex-husband, who rarely cooked, nor his freeloading brother could run a restaurant successfully. They should have known better, but they were too focused on making money. From that point on, no customers came to Sunflower under their management. Meanwhile, I had started a new restaurant in a different location, called Sunflower 2. The employees from the original Sunflower joined me. This new shop was also inherited from my grandfather. He had worried about the aging sunflower and had planned to build a new place in a different location. He wanted to announce the new restaurant once it was finished, but he passed away before it was completed. Now, it was entrusted to me. I hadn't told my ex-husband about this new restaurant during the 2 weeks I handed over Sunflower. I promoted Sunflower too, and many regular customers who wanted to eat my food followed me. Thanks to that, the restaurant was busy right from the start. With the $50,000 I received from my ex-husband, I was able to hire a few part-time workers and increase salaries. I began offering my original dishes and created menus for younger people, including baby food for small children. This attracted a lot of attention and brought in more families. While keeping my grandfather's flavors, I was growing the restaurant to fit modern tastes. The daily hustle gave me a sense of fulfillment. Meanwhile, my ex-husband and his brother were struggling at the old Sunflower. They had borrowed a large amount of money to pay me $50,000 and were now receiving demand letters. "What are we going to do about this?" my ex-husband said, panicking. "You're the one who suggested this, so figure it out," his brother complained, holding his head in his hands. Then, he had an idea. "I've got a great plan," he exclaimed. Suddenly, the two of them showed up at my busy restaurant during lunchtime. "Jailani, please help us," my brother-in-law shouted loudly, despite the packed restaurant. "My brother hurt his arm and can't cook anymore. We'll give the old restaurant back. Could you return the money as well? You took over the old restaurant and signed the contract. You need to take responsibility and make it work." I brushed off his plea and turned to return to my work when my ex-husband appeared behind him, looking pained. "Jailani," he began, thinking my ex-husband was being overly dramatic. I was about to turn back to the kitchen when the restaurant became noisy. "Whoa, what's that? Looks painful. Is he okay?" I heard customers whispering. I turned to see my ex-husband, and I was shocked to see his fist covered in a large bruise. "Are you really injured?" I asked. "That's what I've been saying," he replied. "Then go to the hospital right now," I said, quickly calling a taxi to send him. During my lunch break, I went to the hospital to check on him. When I arrived, he was just coming out, apparently finished with his examination. As I tried to ask what had happened, he and his brother avoided my gaze and hurried off. Their behavior made me suspicious, so I went to the hospital reception. "Excuse me, I'm looking for a man named Theodore. He was here for an examination," I said. "Please wait a moment," the receptionist replied, checking the records, but she looked puzzled. "There's no record of such a consultation. Perhaps he went to a different hospital," she said. Realizing my ex-husband hadn't received any examination, I remembered how quickly they had run away and felt they were hiding something. I quickly set off to pursue them. A few minutes later, I spotted my ex-husband and brother-in-law walking. I stopped the car, grabbed my ex-husband's arm, and called out to him. "I knew it. The bruise is gone," I exclaimed. They tried to run, but I used all my strength to stop them. Seeing my angry expression, they quickly calmed down. "Why is the bruise gone? You weren't injured after all," I asked. "Running a restaurant is hard," my ex-husband admitted. "Old Sunflower hardly gets any customers, so we can't make money to pay back our debts. That's why I pretended to be injured and said I couldn't continue with the restaurant. I thought I could get some money back." "You were trying to deceive me with such a childish lie," I replied, letting go of them. "Don't involve me in your affairs from now on. You two figure out what to do with that restaurant." I got back in my car and returned to my restaurant. Through the mirror, I could see them hanging their heads in shame, and it made me feel a bit sorry for them. After that, they quickly put Sunflower up for sale. I think they made that decision to repay their debts, but due to the building's age, they struggled to find a buyer. They received a flood of debt collection letters and were working around the clock. It seemed this life suited them, having thrown away something precious because of their greed. As for me, my newly renovated restaurant was thriving even more than before, with sales doubling. One of my regular customers offered to apprentice with me, so now I have a disciple. I often remind him that running a restaurant is not as easy as my ex-husband thought. I want to continue carrying on my grandfather's legacy for the foreseeable future.
Get lost with the kid, you adulteress! Despite it being late at night, my husband, Kelly, raised his voice and hurled insults at me. Out of sheer fear, I couldn't help but close my eyes. The reason behind these accusations is simple. Our daughter's blood type is one that couldn't possibly come from the two of us. Upon discovering this, Kelly concluded that I had cheated on him and started blaming me.
I swear I haven't cheated on you. You can even do a DNA test if you want. Though it will likely be a waste of time, I'll do it to prove you're a cheater.
We had been so close when we first got married, I never thought things would come to this.
You'll regret saying that.
What are you talking about? There's no way I'll regret it. Kelly seemed confident in his words, but I couldn't understand why. He should be the one to know best that I haven't had the opportunity to cheat, given how much time we spend together. But his lack of trust pushed me to agree to the DNA test. A few weeks later, the DNA test results arrived.
All right, I'll prove you're a cheater now.
Kelly took out the document from the envelope with a smug smile. However, his face turned pale as he examined the contents.
So, what do the results say?
What is this? My name is Alicia. I'm 29 years old. I work at an insurance company in the General Affairs Department. I met my husband Kelly at this company. He's an ace salesperson in the sales department. When we first met, I was still new and didn't know much. Kelly would often invite me out for drinks. Having just moved to the area, I didn't have many friends, so I appreciated his kindness. Plus, every time we went out after work, Kelly would listen to my work-related concerns.
I'm feeling a lot of stress because my boss has been putting pressure on me. The best way to relieve stress is to talk to someone about it. I'm always here to go out for drinks with you.
I really rely on you because you're so helpful. I later heard that he fell in love at first sight when he first came to the General Affairs Department and was trying to win me over. I wasn't aware of that, so I gradually fell for Kelly, and before I knew it, we were married. Kelly, being an ace salesperson, had a good income, so I could have become a housewife, but I chose not to. This decision was influenced by the rift between me and his family. After we got married, I found out that in his family, all women become housewives after marriage. Since our wedding, they've been pressuring me to quit my job and move in with them. I didn't want to do that, so I continued working. I talked to him about this, but he didn't want to go against his parents and didn't support me.
You could at least be on my side a little. Of course, I'm on your side, but I understand Mom's point too.
Why do you always side with your mother? But recently, despite our differences, I found out I was pregnant. I left work early because I wasn't feeling well and discovered I was pregnant at the hospital. However, not wanting to rely on Kelly's family, I decided to return to my parents' home to have the baby. When I returned to my parents' home, they were very kind, knowing the strained relationship I had with my in-laws.
There will be tough times, but I'm sure you'll have a healthy baby.
Hearing you say that, Mom, makes me feel so much better.
If anything happens, you can always rely on me.
Thank you so much. I will. With my mother's kindness protecting me, I was able to give birth to a healthy child. Kelly was very happy about the birth and supported me throughout the pregnancy. Since I went to my parents' house right after discovering I was pregnant, I didn't have to face any pressure from my in-laws and was able to give birth with peace of mind. However, even years after giving birth, my mother-in-law Natasha continues to pressure me whenever we meet. Although my in-laws adore our child, they want us to return to their home as soon as possible because of their affection for the child. One day, after a usual day at work, I came home to find her there. Since she has a spare key, she sometimes comes over without notifying me. The moment I realized she was in the house, I felt genuinely uncomfortable. As soon as I entered the living room, she immediately started pressuring me.
When will you be satisfied with working? You're not getting any younger, so quit your job and come back home. I have no intention of quitting my job or returning to the in-laws' house. What kind of attitude is that?
after we were kind enough to let you marry my son. The child is about to start kindergarten, so you must come back before then.
Please don't say let you marry. Of course, I'm considering the child, but this is a matter between me and my husband. Our child will attend a kindergarten near our current home. Oh dear, why did he marry someone like you? Besides, the General Affairs Department doesn't pay that well, so I don't see why you insist on continuing.
No matter how hard I try, she will never acknowledge me. Recently, I heard from my husband that Natasha had hoped he would marry someone from the sales department. Apparently, she believes that people in sales are better at understanding others' feelings and would become the ideal wife for her son. In other words, she dislikes me. Even though it doesn't directly concern me, being constantly told such things takes a toll on my mental health. I didn't expect it to be this bad, and now I don't know what to do. Moreover, Kelly, being a mama's boy, always downplays her pressure. Even though it's an issue within our marriage that needs to be resolved together, he doesn't support me at all.
You should tell her that it's fine for me to continue working. I'll raise our child properly. Why don't you just ignore her? It's not like she's putting that much pressure on you. You may not realize it, but she's pressuring me a lot. If this keeps up, it could escalate, and who knows what she'll do. I don't think Mom would go that far, but I'll talk to her next time I see her. You always say that, but you never actually do anything. You could try harder to protect me and the child. Honestly, I think it would be easier if we moved back home. Mom would help with the child, and we wouldn't have to pay rent. Returning home seems like the best option to me. I understand the benefits, but I don't want to be pressured. I want our child to grow up freely, and I can't imagine moving back right now. Don't you want to live happily as a family of 3? Mom has put a lot of thought into this. You should realize that going back home would be easier for you too. Stop being stubborn and move back now.
I don't want to take the easy way out. No matter how much I express my opinion, Kelly only sides with Natasha. It's fine to have a good relationship with the in-laws, but I can't accept his obsession with them. Why doesn't he understand the mental anguish I'm going through because of her pressure? While I was contemplating this, our child fell and got injured. I immediately took my child to the hospital, where they decided to conduct a thorough examination just to be safe. The results showed no abnormalities in her body, but an unexpected and shocking fact was revealed. Our daughter's blood type was one that neither Kelly nor I could have given her. I am type O, and Kelly is type B, yet our child's blood type was A. I couldn't understand what was happening, so I decided to bring the test results home and discuss them with Kelly. When I arrived, he was already home, so I explained the situation to him.
Hey, our child got injured, so I took her to the hospital for some tests. What's with that serious look on your face? Did they find something serious? No, nothing like that. But our child's blood type is A. I'm type O, and you're type B, so she couldn't possibly have a type blood.
He thought for a moment, then widened his eyes and pointed at me. You cheated on me with another man, didn't you? That's the only explanation.
I would never do that. How can you say something so horrible?
I was honestly shocked because I never expected to be told something like this. Even though it's him, I thought he trusted me. Get lost with the kid, you adulteress. Even though it was the middle of the night, Kelly yelled abusive words at me. I was so terrified that I closed my eyes. The reason for this abusive tirade was simple. Our daughter's blood type was one that couldn't possibly come from us as a couple. Knowing this, he accused me of having an affair.
I really haven't cheated on you. You can even have a DNA test done if you don't believe me. It might be a waste of time, but I'll do it to prove you're an adulteress. We were so close when we first got married, and never thought things would turn out like this. Don't say I didn't warn you if you regret this later. Regret? Why would I regret this? I'm telling Mom about this too. With that, Kelly called Natasha right in front of me and started explaining everything in detail. A few minutes later, Natasha, understanding the situation, asked to speak with me, so Kelly handed me the phone. So you really are that kind of person. I knew it from the start. That's why you preferred to live in your own house instead of coming to ours. You didn't want to come back to our house because you wouldn't be able to cheat easily. That's not why I refused, and I haven't cheated. Don't lie to Mom too! Both of them were convinced of my infidelity, attacking me together. But since I truly hadn't cheated, I decided to prove it through a DNA test. You really want to do a DNA test? It will only reveal your wrongdoing, so I suggest you don't. I already said it's fine because I haven't cheated. Or do you have something to hide? There's nothing I, as the man, can do. If you're so confident, let's do the DNA test. I don't understand why you seem so happy about this. Normally, if you think I've cheated, wouldn't you be sad? I'm not happy at all. But I'm amazed at how calm you are when your wrongdoing is about to be exposed. Of course I'm calm because I haven't done anything. If there were even a slight possibility, I'd be panicking. If the DNA test proves the child isn't mine, we're getting a divorce. I can't stay married to someone who has a child with another man. Fine by me. All right, it's a promise. Don't say later that you were joking. Let's get the DNA test done and see the truth. We quickly collected our DNA samples and sent them to a facility for testing. A few weeks later, the results came back. Although I knew there was no possibility of infidelity, I was still nervous about what the results would say. Oddly, he seemed even more nervous than me. He took the envelope, his hands sweaty as he opened it. As he pulled out the documents and read them, his expression turned to one of great surprise. Seeing that look, I couldn't help but wonder what was written inside. Why do you look so surprised? Does it say that I had an affair? No, that's not it. Then, just let me see it. I snatched the report from Kelly, and the content was shocking. It stated that Kelly's blood type, which he always said was B, was actually A. Normally, having a different blood type wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the problem was that both of Kelly's parents had blood type B. This meant that if Kelly were their biological child, he couldn't have blood type A. That's why Kelly's face turned pale. He had been accusing me of having an affair and bearing a child from it, but now it seemed his own parents might not be his biological parents. The shock was too much for him, and he stopped saying anything to me. He took the report from me again and checked if his blood type was indeed A. However, it was clearly stated, leaving no room for doubt. Moreover, because Kelly didn't want any errors in the testing, he had chosen a very expensive and reliable facility. So, I was confident the results were accurate. What is going on here? Why am I type A when Dad and Mom are supposed to be type B? I never thought we'd discover this. But now it's clear I didn't have an affair because it wasn't a secret lover who was type A, it was you. You're right. The report even says the likelihood of you being the biological parent is high. But why did Dad and Mom lie? You accused me of cheating so much, yet you have nothing to say about that? Normally, accusing your spouse of an affair is unthinkable. I'm sorry about that. But it's strange to do things that make you look suspicious. Maybe you're upset, but the report proved I did nothing wrong. If we had known from the start that your blood type was A, none of this would have happened. Also, how have you never had a blood test in your 30s? I've never been hospitalized and have always been healthy. Since both my parents said they were type B, I didn't see the need to check.
It's rare, but 2B types can have an O-type child. But they can't have an A-type child, so there must be some hidden truth in your family.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I can't stand this. I'm going to find out the truth.
Kelly couldn't sit still and hurriedly started getting ready. We took the report and headed to his parents' house. I wasn't sure why I had to go along, but I decided to join him. When we arrived, both of his parents were there, waiting for us. Natasha was smirking, thinking I had come to apologize for cheating. She probably assumed I was here to apologize for my confirmed affair.
So, you really were cheating, and now you're getting a divorce from Kelly? Is that a divorce paper Kelly's holding?
I didn't cheat, so we aren't getting divorced because of that. If we divorce, it might be because of something on your side.
Why would it be my fault? There's no problem now that the affair is off the table.
I've only heard a bit, but what happened? And what's this talk of divorce when your child was just born?
It seems the child's blood type was unusual.
What do you mean by unusual blood type? Robert, my father-in-law, seemed quite unsettled since he hadn't been informed about the situation. Given that we suddenly arrived talking about divorce and blood types, it was understandable.
It seems Alicia might have had an affair. The child's blood type can't come from the two of them.
I can't believe Alicia would have an affair. Is this true? Since the birth of the child, Robert has been very kind to me. It seems he was thrilled to become a grandfather. I had heard stories about people starting to exercise just to play with their grandchildren, but I never thought I'd see it myself. His kindness to both me and the child was appreciated. Currently, the child was in Kelly's room, so Robert seemed intent on protecting me.
I would never have an affair. I'm not like some people.
And who exactly are you referring to?
Never mind that. Just show them the DNA test results.
You're right. Kelly, perhaps still shaken, obediently followed my request. He took out the DNA test results and showed them to his parents.
The test proves we're a legitimate family. But why is my blood type A, not B? If both Dad and Mom are B, I should be B or O.
Kelly's words left his parents speechless. They seemed unable to process the information. After a while, as they started to grasp the situation, they became even more agitated. Wait, why is Kelly's blood type A? I'm definitely B, so Mom must be lying.
I'm not lying. How could you say that after decades of marriage?
I can show you my blood type records. Then why is Kelly A? If we're both B, he can't be A. Were you cheating on me, Mom? What? Well, of course not. She looked visibly disturbed. Though it wasn't definitive, something was clearly off. Even if she hadn't cheated, there seemed to be something she was hiding. I hadn't expected things to escalate this far, and I had no idea what would happen next.
Anyway, if both of you are B, then Kelly can't be your biological child. Either one of you is lying about your blood type, or Natasha was unfaithful.
I already told you, I didn't cheat.
Then you won't mind doing a DNA test like we did. That way, we can find out the truth about who Kelly's real parents are.
Upon hearing Kelly's suggestion, she fell silent. If there was nothing to hide, a DNA test shouldn't be a problem. It was clear she had a secret. Robert seemed to think the same. Judging by their reactions, there was indeed something they were concealing. If you can't do the DNA test, then tell us everything honestly.
All right, I'll tell you everything. I don't know all the details myself, but it might be my ex-boyfriend's child. What do you mean by your ex-boyfriend's child? And what do you mean you don't know the details? You must have been seeing your ex while you were dating Robert. And you remember that his blood type was A.
When I made this assertion, she fell silent again. Judging by her reaction, it seemed to be the truth.
It seems like Alicia is right. This is the first time I've heard such a thing.
I can't believe Dad isn't my real dad. Mom, why did you keep such an important thing a secret?
No, I really thought you were Robert's child. I only saw my ex-boyfriend for a short period.
Even if it was a short period, it means you had an affair. And you had the nerve to accuse me of having an affair?
But it was 30 years ago.
It doesn't matter how many years ago it was. It doesn't change the fact that you cheated. I don't understand why you kept accusing me.
Well, we don't need to blame her too much for an affair that happened so long ago. What hurts me is that she kept it a secret.
Despite Natasha being the cause of the affair, Kelly seemed to be defending her. But infidelity is wrong, no matter when it happened. How can he think it's not a big deal?
There's something I've been hesitant to say, but you're having an affair too, aren't you?
What are you talking about? How can you say such a baseless thing?
It's not baseless. Do you think I'm saying this without any proof?
What do you mean by that? Kelly was visibly shaken, easily noticeable by anyone. He must know he's done something wrong. I had seen a woman's message on her smartphone a while back. I didn't know if it was an affair, but in this situation, it was a good time to shake him up since he was already off balance. Kelly was clearly rattled, not expecting this affair scandal to turn towards him. Are you telling me both Natasha and Kelly had affairs? Don't tarnish our family name like this.
Mom might have done it, but I was recognized as a parent by the DNA test. Don't compare me to Mom, who had an affair and a child. My affair was 30 years ago, so it's past the statute of limitations. And since Kelly is already 30, it shouldn't matter if the parent is different.
That's a different issue. Don't lump me together with you. Unlike you, I haven't cheated.
You seem pretty confident, but I have proof.
Saying this, I showed the photo of the notification screen from Kelly's smartphone that had messages from a woman. The content clearly showed a close relationship with the woman. Even Kelly wouldn't be able to deny this evidence. How?
I had a password set on my phone. When you came back from a business trip, you left it unlocked while you were sleeping, so I saw it. I didn't crack your password or anything.
Cheating right after having a baby, you're truly a terrible man.
Mom, you're the last person who should say that. You had a child with someone other than Dad and kept it a secret.
I never expected the situation to escalate to this extent, but the suspicion against me had cleared, and it seemed like this family was heading towards collapse. Their affairs had come to light, and Robert, beyond anger, was completely dismayed. Robert, concerned for me and my child, allowed us to return home. He must have thought it was best for us to leave the scene of the family discord. The next day, Kelly returned home, looking utterly exhausted.
You're late getting back.
A lot happened after that. Don't act like it's none of your business. Why did you have to show that picture in front of everyone? How dare you turn this around on me? I don't care about you anymore. You called me an adulteress when you were the one having an affair.
Well, that was...
Kelly seemed to be reflecting on everything. He was probably thinking about his affair partner. If he hadn't left his smartphone unlocked in his exhaustion, I wouldn't have suspected anything, and he might be regretting that now.
You tried to accuse me of infidelity to avoid paying alimony in a divorce. But I can see through all your plans. How could you cheat on me when we just had a baby? You don't need to say anything more. I'm reflecting on it. From now on, let's try to make it work as a family of 3.
It's too late to try now. I'm divorcing you.
With that, I slammed the divorce papers in front of him. He was clearly shocked, not having expected I would go this far. Though he had no intention of divorcing, being presented with the papers caught him off guard. But I had decided to divorce him the moment his affair was confirmed. Are you really going to divorce me? Do you think you can raise a child alone? It's impossible for you to do it on your own, so you might as well give up. I'll make sure to get alimony and child support from you in the divorce settlement. Even if we divorce, you'll still support this household. What? I'm not paying any of that. I've already consulted a lawyer, so it's pointless to resist. If you have complaints, take them up with your past self. His face turned pale. He never thought he'd have to pay such money. Being a spendthrift with no savings, he was probably wondering what to do. While we were having this conversation, Natasha suddenly appeared at our house. Apparently, she had followed Kelly, who was on his way back. The discussion isn't over yet, so don't just leave. You're not getting our house. After everything you've put us through, don't expect any kindness from me. I'm sorry, but can I just stay at home? Why should I let you stay at the house? You clearly said you'd never come back, and now you want to? Excuse me, I hate to interrupt.
What now? You've already ruined our family, and you still have more to say? You're worthless without the child. Honestly, I'd prefer you not to be with Kelly.
Well, I've already decided to divorce Kelly, so we won't be together anymore. And Kelly will be busy paying alimony and child support, so please take care of him.
What? Are you two really getting a divorce?
She seemed quite surprised to hear that we were getting divorced. Despite her constant taunts, it was clear she hadn't considered the possibility of our divorce. Given all the nasty things she'd said, I assumed she had considered the potential for a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict to lead to divorce. But she must have thought that since she didn't divorce after her own affair and raising a child with someone else, divorce wasn't an option for us either. However, I couldn't see myself continuing with a husband like Kelly, who cheated on me, or a MIL who constantly pressured me. Given that Kelly cheated on me, I can't stay with him. And I certainly don't want to live with a MIL who constantly pressures me, I said. Robert, who had been following Natasha, came to our house as well. I heard everything at the door. You're getting a divorce, huh? It's unfortunate, but considering Alicia and the child, it's probably for the best.
How could you say that? Natasha exclaimed.
By the way, we're also getting a divorce, Robert said. What? I haven't heard anything about that. Natasha responded.
It's obvious to anyone that we should divorce. So, please leave the house you're living in.
Then where am I supposed to go? Kelly asked.
You're old enough to figure that out for yourself. Don't think you can shirk your responsibilities to Alicia and the child and have an easy life at home.
And where am I supposed to go? Natasha asked. Both Kelly and Natasha, who had been so assertive until now, turned pale at his words. Having lost the refuge of their family home, they were now in despair. I felt a bit satisfied, given how much they had belittled me. Kelly and Natasha, unable to return to their family home, rented an old apartment together. The houses we had lived in were quite nice, so the downgrade must have been severe. Natasha, having had a helper at home, wasn't very skilled at housework. Kelly, who had always left everything to me, was probably clueless about household chores. So, even though there were two adults living together, it was easy to imagine their lives had become quite miserable.
Although I could learn more about their living conditions through the lawyer, I chose not to inquire further, expecting the reality to be too dismal. My primary concern was to keep my child away from an unfaithful father, and securing the divorce was enough for me. I had no intention of being lenient with Kelly, so I ensured he paid the full amount of alimony and child support.
You will pay the full amount of alimony and child support. If I find out you haven't, be prepared for the consequences, I said.
You think just divorcing me is bad enough? Do you have no heart? Kelly retorted.
Which mouth are you saying that with? Anyway, make sure you pay the alimony and child support, I insisted.
Got it, he muttered.
I don't understand how you can have such an attitude after doing something so wrong. You're right. I'm really sorry, Kelly said.
Kelly's salary wasn't high, and he wasn't the type to save money, so after paying the alimony and child support, he probably had very little left. Thanks to the alimony and child support, my child and I could continue living in the same house, maintaining our standard of living. My burden hadn't changed since Kelly had never been involved in household chores. Moreover, divorcing him relieved me of stress, allowing me to raise my child with a happier mindset than ever before. It was during a family trip with my in-laws and brother-in-law's family. I was shocked when my 9th grader, Lola, confessed she was pregnant. Right after, I got a call from the hospital. Lola and my husband, Madison, had been rushed to the ER. I gasped at the police explanation.
Please listen calmly. It was a murder-suicide.
What? The blood drained from my body and I started shaking. My gentle Madison would never do such a thing. Seeing Madison and Lola unharmed only strengthened that belief. Later, my sister-in-law Eleanor and family arrived at the hospital. While my in-laws, Madison and Lola stepped out, Eleanor whispered to me, "That girl thinks she got pregnant just from getting cozy with her boyfriend." Stupid, right? As I grew flustered, Rilla mocked me with a laugh. "We gave her a toy pregnancy test and she freaked out thinking it was real." Her pale, crying face was hilarious. Anger heated my body as they laughed. I won't forgive this. Rilla and Eleanor. I'll make you regret making me truly angry. I'm Aaliyah, a 48-year-old housewife. I've been married to my same-age husband, Madison, for 17 years. Madison and I have a daughter, Lola. She's an honest, kind girl we're proud of. We lived an ordinary life, the three of us laughing at TV variety shows or squealing with Lola over music idols. But one day, our average days came crashing down. Madison has an older brother, Garrett, who lives with my in-laws in the next town. Garrett and his wife have a daughter, Rilla, 2 years older than Lola. She's a cute girl who takes after her beautiful mother, Eleanor. But being spoiled by Garrett and Eleanor, she does whatever she wants. I'd rather not have Lola associate with her much. But they're cousins who attend the same elementary and middle school, so it can't be helped. We live in a rural area, so all the relatives gather at my in-laws during long holidays, summer break, and Christmas. My in-laws are good people who dote on Lola like Rilla and look forward to seeing her grow. But I couldn't stand Garrett and Eleanor from the start of my marriage. They're graduates of a nationally renowned university. Garrett, who works for a large corporation, constantly looks down on Madison for being dumb and poor since he works at a small company. Eleanor smugly blogs about her carefree housewife life and pities me for still working after marriage. That's one thing, but I can't forgive them for mocking Lola too. Poor thing, being born to impoverished parents. Too bad she wasn't born cuter. And every time we meet, Eleanor brags about Rilla's looks. Our girl is a beauty like her mom, she's a hit at kindergarten. A modeling agency scouted her, Well, I wouldn't send her to such a small place. In group photos, I feel bad for the other kids. They're all just foils for Rilla. Rilla, adored and spoiled by her parents, couldn't possibly grow up to be decent. Since she was little, she acted queenly with snide words and actions. For example, this one time. After giving birth to Lola and my maternity leave, I returned to work full-time. On weekdays, I'd drop Lola at nursery school. On my occasional weekend workdays, I'd have Madison watch her or ask my in-laws. As Lola got older, I'd let her stay home alone for short periods while I went to work. Lola and I made a promise. Whenever I went out, I had to tell her my destination by smartphone message and come home before dusk. She was a girl who kept promises, so Madison and I trusted Lola and let her be fairly independent. But there were times when Madison or I would come home for dinner and Lola still wasn't back. Those times, Rilla had dragged her around. Checking GPS, they were usually at the nearest mall. When I called Lola's smartphone, she'd answer in a helpless voice. "Mom, I'm sorry. Rilla says she still wants to play games and won't listen." Her feeble reply made me furious. An hour later, when Rilla and Lola returned, I scolded them. "You're still in elementary school, you know? How long are you going to stay out playing?" Rilla then said in a cheeky tone, "Aunt, I'm being nice by playing with Lola. You should be grateful." Rilla took the bag Lola was holding and went home. When I asked about it later, of course, Rilla had made Lola treat her to everything from drinks to lunch. When Madison called Garrett to protest, he arrogantly said, "That much is no big deal. Don't be so stingy." The selfish Rilla is disliked by other girls, so no one wants to be around her except Lola. If Lola didn't answer the door, Rilla would keep ringing the doorbell. Even if Lola said she had homework, Rilla would forcibly drag her out saying just for a bit. We were troubled, but being relatives, there was a limit to how harshly we could reject Rilla. Dealing with her was a constant concern. Eventually, after starting middle school, Rilla began excessively antagonizing Lola. One winter evening, Rilla stormed over to our place after school, yelling, "Lola, don't you dare talk to him so casually without my permission." "I'm sorry." Lola meekly apologized to Rilla, shouting at the entryway, "My friend said she likes him. She wanted to confess before moving, so I went with her." "What? You actually like him yourself, don't you?" "No, I don't." Lola denied it loudly, which was unusual for her. I abandoned the dinner preparations and dashed from the kitchen to the entryway. I stepped between Rilla and Lola, facing off. "Rilla, that's enough, don't you think?" "Don't butt in, Aunt. This is discipline." Rilla narrowed her eyes. "The nerve of Lola to talk to boys on her own. An ugly girl like her should just stay quiet." Rilla was a flashy beauty, but her nasty personality seeped through her appearance. Lola, on the other hand, may not be classically beautiful, but she's a cute girl with an impressively natural smile. I couldn't forgive Rilla for mocking her like this. "Hey! There are things you should and shouldn't say." Irritated, I unintentionally raised my voice. "Go home already! Don't ever come to our house again!" As I yelled, Rilla smirked. "But Lola's going to my high school, right?" I was at a loss for words. Lola, who aspires to be an interpreter, plans to attend Rilla's high school next spring for its international program. It's the only school in the state with a sister school in Germany and a well-established exchange program. "I can't wait to have you as my underclassman next year." Flashing a nasty grin at Lola and me, Rilla left. I was bothered by Rilla's meaningful attitude, but surprisingly, Lola didn't seem to mind. Rilla is in the general program, right? The international program building is separate, so we'll hardly meet. Indeed, the two school buildings are on different grounds with some distance between them. Except for students in the same club, students in each program have little interaction. For Lola, who has loved German since childhood, giving presentations and entering essay contests to hone her skills, getting into that school is the first step toward her dream. She probably can't be bothered by Rilla's snide remarks. However, a while after the new year, Lola visibly lost her energy. She hardly ate, and even when spoken to, she seemed dazed. At first, I thought she must be sleep-deprived from studying late at cram school with entrance exams coming up. But sometimes Lola would give me a look as if she wanted to say something, or start to say something but stop. You haven't seemed well lately. You look pale too. Is something troubling you? When I asked, Lola forced a smile and denied it. No, it's nothing. You know, I'm just nervous with the entrance exam coming up. If that's all, then good. But if anything's wrong, tell me. Mom's always here to listen. Yeah. Thanks. Lola seemed preoccupied, but stubbornly refused to open up. However, even after getting into her desired school, Lola's condition didn't improve. Did something happen at school? Even when I asked, she weakly denied it. On days off, she'd shut herself in her room all day. She'd slowly come down the stairs only at mealtimes, but always leave more than half uneaten. Madison and I were wondering if it was time to take her to a psychiatrist. That's when Garrett called Madison. Huh? A vacation? There are events too? Madison put it on speakerphone so I could hear as I prepared dinner in the kitchen. You know, Lola got into Rilla's high school. And her birthday is coming up. Mom suggested we all eat something nice together to celebrate both. Garrett's explanation made sense to me. It was just like my mother-in-law Katie, who sends Lola a birthday card every year, to come up with this idea. We'll meet there and go our separate ways after. Other than dinner, each family can look at the ocean, go to events, do whatever they want. Right. I'll discuss it with Lola and get back to you later. Leaving the response pending, he hung up for now. At dinner, when I mentioned the trip to Lola at the table, a faint sparkle returned to her hollow eyes. Will we have separate rooms for each family? Of course. Look, you can see the ocean from the rooms. The sea at night is romantic too. When I showed her pictures of the ocean view at the destination, Lola's eyes widened. Mom, can we sleep together? Sure, that's fine. Then I want to go. And so the vacation with my in-laws and Garrett's family was decided. Unfortunately, it didn't go peacefully. The sea breeze caressing our cheeks and the endless scenic views didn't seem to console Lola's depressed mood. As Garrett's family made a huge fuss taking endless pictures of Rilla, Lola watched with a cold gaze. She smiled for just a moment eating gelato on the cafe terrace or at meals. But after a little while, her expression would darken again. It seemed I had no choice but to wait until Lola and I were alone in the room for her to confide in me. That evening, gathered in the spacious dining room with my in-laws and Garrett's family, we enjoyed fresh seafood together. Congratulations on getting in! And happy birthday! The underage Lola and Rilla poured orange juice into their glasses and toasted with the adults' beers. They grow up so fast, starting high school in the spring. Lola's finally going to be Rilla's underclassman, huh? Swayed by my in-laws' smiles, Lola's face also brightened. With Eleanor and Rilla in front of their grandparents, even they refrained from their usual snide remarks for once. After finishing the meal, as promised, I went to the room together with Lola. Wow, it's so pretty! I let out an unintentional gasp as I looked up at the night sky. The round moon shone brightly overhead, its reflection glimmering on the sea's surface. But Lola still wore a gloomy expression. After a while, Lola began to speak heavily.
Mom.
What is it? I asked nonchalantly.
I think I'm pregnant.
What? Not understanding, I asked again. In a small but clear voice, Lola said the words.
I think I'm going to have a baby.
I stared at Lola's face. Then, tears welled up in Lola's eyes and spilled down her cheeks.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom.
Calm down, I told myself. Confused, I asked questions. Did you take a test? Have you been to the hospital? Lola shook her head weakly.
I took a home test and it was positive. I haven't gone to the hospital yet.
Then let's go to the hospital after the trip. It could be a mistake. Lola looked at me with surprise.
Mom, you're not mad?
Getting angry won't solve anything. I pulled Lola's head close and stroked it gently. Thank you for telling me. You must have been so scared and anxious. Lola burst into heavy sobs. Poor thing. I felt like crying too. By the way, Lola, can I ask who the father is? Of course, it takes two to make a baby. I had absolutely no idea. Her shoulders shaking, Lola choked out the words.
I'll tell you everything, just give me a little time.
Okay. Let me know when you've collected your thoughts. I conveyed that, trying not to get emotional. In any case, let's go to the hospital once we're back from the trip. We can think about the future after that. Even if Lola ends up as a single mother, Madison and I will support her and figure it out somehow. Looking a bit more at peace, Lola went to the hotel shop just as Madison returned from outside. When I told him about the pregnancy, he was even more shaken than I was, but came to the same conclusion. I had no idea Lola had a boyfriend either. Tomorrow, I'll try to casually ask her about him. After thinking a bit, Madison said with a troubled look. It's hard to imagine our cautious Lola doing something reckless like that. And she might have used the pregnancy test wrong.
Yes. Please try asking her too.
In any case, as her parents, we'll be on Lola's side. That's the decision we reached. The next evening, after enjoying a lavish dinner, Madison invited Lola for a walk along the beach. With the sea breeze chilly, they put on jackets and headed out. As I was sipping liqueur I bought at the grocery store, gazing at the full moon and night sea from the window of the hotel that allowed outside food and drink, my smartphone suddenly rang. Answering the call, the person identified himself as an EMT from the city hospital. My heart raced with a bad premonition. Your husband and daughter were brought in. Can you come right away? I nearly stopped breathing. Grabbing only my smartphone and wallet, I dashed out of the hotel and hurried to the car. I have no memory of where or how I drove, but I found myself at the hospital. In front of a door with a red light indicating treatment in progress, I sat slumped on a bench in the dimly lit hallway when the police arrived. Showing me their badges and confirming my identity, they spoke to me in stiff tones. Please listen calmly. It was a murder-suicide. What? It appears your husband pushed your daughter off a cliff into the sea, then jumped in himself. The blood drained from my body and I began to tremble. That has to be some kind of mistake. We have actual eyewitness accounts. The chilling words nearly sent me into a panic. However, when we questioned others, we heard different accounts. We're investigating thoroughly now. After asking me a few more questions, the officers left. A while later, the ER doors opened and Madison and Lola appeared. Madison, Lola! You're okay. I tried to run to them, but my knees buckled and I collapsed on the spot. As I started crying, Lola teared up too.
Mom, I'm so sorry for worrying you. Dad and I just got some scrapes.
Right after we fell, local fishermen rescued us. We briefly passed out from swallowing seawater. Madison's gentle smile convinced me. There's no way Madison would push Lola off a cliff. It had to be a mistake. The two had bandages wrapped around their scraped arms and legs. Miraculously, they got away with just bruises. They got CT scans done and nothing seemed abnormal.
Oh right, Mom. There's no baby.
What? Lola told me sheepishly as I looked on in surprise.
I had them check if the baby was okay. Turns out I'm not pregnant. My period was just late. Sorry for causing a big fuss.
Madison and I looked at each other and laughed, the tension draining from our bodies.
Oh, is that so?
That's a relief. My in-laws, who had been out, also rushed to the hospital with Garrett's family. Garrett and his family were yawning hugely, but my in-laws checked that Madison and Lola were safe and calmed down. While Madison and Lola went to pay the bill and my in-laws went to the hospital shop, Rilla and Eleanor approached me. They whispered in my ear as I grew wary.
Lola's an idiot, isn't she?
Huh?
She thinks she got pregnant just from getting cozy with her boyfriend. What a bird brain.
As I looked on in shock, Rilla laughed creepily too.
When we gave her a toy pregnancy test, she totally freaked thinking it was real. Her pale, crying face was hilarious.
So these two were the cause. The moment I realized, fury welled up in me. I clenched my teeth and glared at Rilla and Eleanor. But I couldn't very well yell at them in the hospital, so I desperately held back my anger. Rilla had jerked us around so much until now. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it since we were cousins. Being close in age and the same gender, I had a faint hope they might get along someday. But I'd reached my limit. I won't forgive this. Rilla and Eleanor. I'll make you regret making me truly angry. The next day, after finishing breakfast with Madison and Lola in the hotel dining room, I went home briefly to get something. Returning to the hotel, I called my in-laws and Garrett's family to our room.
What is it? We're checking out at noon. I'm busy getting ready to go.
Garrett was in a foul mood after oversleeping and scrambling through his meal. Seeing Madison and Lola lined up, he seemed to want to make a snide remark and smirked.
But man, Madison, that's awful. Sure, I'd freak out too if Rilla got pregnant, but I wouldn't push her off a cliff. If that happened to me, you'd probably punch the guy. Ugh. Oh, yeah, that's more likely.
As Garrett and his family laughed, my in-laws wore sad expressions beside them. Stop that. There's no way Madison would do such a thing.
Hey, you never know, right?
I turned a sharp gaze on Garrett's family. Garrett, where did you hear that rumor?
Yesterday, some fishermen picking up trash on the beach were talking about it. Right, Rilla? Yep.
Rilla replied, sounding delighted.
When Mom and I went for a walk in the evening, the fishermen were talking. They said they saw a father and daughter arguing. After that, the father pushed the girl off, then jumped into the sea himself.
That has to be about Madison and Lola.
Someone must have seen them and spread the rumor.
Did you even tell the police that way? Eleanor nodded at my question.
Of course. But Madison, you told the police you didn't do it, right?
Actually, after returning to the hotel from the hospital, the police showed up again and Madison and Lola told them everything that happened last night. Obviously,
I didn't push Lola off or anything. I told the police that too.
Madison explained, sounding fed up. But there are eyewitness accounts.
Lola, someone pushed you off, right? I was definitely pushed, but there's no way Dad would do that.
Eleanor shrugged at Lola, getting worked up.
I get you want to protect your family, but come to think of it, Eleanor, the principal of Lola's high school lives in this town, right?
Eleanor broke into a cold sweat and Rilla turned pale.
Really? I had no idea. Wow, Aunt, you sure know a lot.
Their reactions seemed to say, "How the heck do you know that too?" which amused me.
After I got back from the hospital in the evening, Lola and I asked around the fishermen while helping them clean up trash on the beach.
Rilla and Eleanor exchanged glances at my words. They were clearly shaken. They obviously hadn't expected us to go that far. Apparently, the ones spreading rumors
that Madison pushed Lola into the sea were a beautiful mother-daughter pair rarely seen around these parts.
Lola said, eyeing the fidgeting Eleanor with an unusually stern tone.
I've been thinking about why they would do such a thing. They must have wanted to spread nasty gossip so that I'd get rejected by the school.
Katie furrowed her brow.
So you're saying this was the work of someone holding a grudge against Lola?
But for a prank, this is going too far. Madison could face assault charges, you know, my father-in-law Alvin said indignantly.
I explained to him.
They probably thought the charges would be cleared if the police investigated. As long as the school denied my admission, they would have been satisfied. Their real goal was to pull an elaborate trick to harass Lola, right?
As I glared at Eleanor and Rilla, my in-laws and Garrett went wide-eyed with shock.
When Lola came to you two for advice, you pretended to listen sympathetically but then played a malicious prank on her. You made her think she was pregnant, didn't you? What? Rilla and them are the reason Lola thought she was pregnant?
What did you do to Lola?
Even when questioned by my in-laws, Eleanor and Rilla just sullenly looked away. Judging by how dumbfounded Garrett seemed, he clearly hadn't known anything about it either. Realizing there was nowhere left to run, Eleanor and Rilla sighed in exasperation and reluctantly confessed.
Yeah, we were just messing with her a bit. We didn't think she'd actually believe it though.
The two of them said with a laugh.
I mean, getting pregnant just from some kissing and hugging? What kindergarten-level knowledge? I knew that too. I was just double-checking that my period was late, that's all. But then you two said with a straight face you're definitely pregnant.
Lola desperately explained, her face beet red.
I have a boyfriend, but I knew I couldn't be pregnant. So I figured it was just exam stress making me feel sick. That's what I told you, remember? I thought Mom would worry if I asked her, and since you're girls too, you'd give me advice. But you insisted it was morning sickness.
Rilla and Eleanor listened to Lola's story while laughing mockingly. Furious, I shared what Lola had told me.
Lola said you told her some women can get pregnant just from a little physical contact with a guy. Why don't you take a test just in case, and made her use a gag gift pregnancy test?
Recalling that moment, Eleanor and Rilla burst out laughing.
We didn't think she'd take it seriously. It was so hard not to laugh. Lola always acts so high and mighty, it was hilarious seeing her pale and flustered face.
I glared hatefully at Rilla and Eleanor as they fell over cackling on the floor.
Lola trusted you enough to confide in you. How could you treat her like that?
Rilla looked at me, the corner of her mouth twisting.
I've always hated her guts. Since we're cousins, she always gets compared to me. Being class rep, winning debate competitions, getting good grades, that ugly girl acts so full of herself.
She spat resentfully.
I told Mom and I would go with her to the hospital, and not to tell Auntie Aaliyah yet. But then yesterday in the hallway,
I overheard Uncle Madison talking to Lola.
Oh? What did he say?
That they shouldn't put much strain on her body, so maybe they should go for a short walk and come back. When I realized she'd betrayed us, I got so pissed.
Yep, that's why we spread the rumor that Madison pushed Lola in. Eleanor added gleefully.
Word spreads fast in a small town. I'm sure it would reach the principal's ears. I hoped she'd get rejected from the high school she always wanted to go to and be utterly crushed.
Appalled, I said to the snickering Rilla and Eleanor. But you know, pushing someone into the sea is a crime. You didn't realize that?
No way, even we wouldn't go that far. Right, Rilla? Yeah. You got any proof?
I smiled at the two of them, looking so self-assured. We got eyewitness testimony when asking around.
What? You're lying.
Rilla and Eleanor were visibly shaken. It's true. Apparently 2 long-haired women snuck up behind Madison and Lola.
It was someone else.
Eleanor promptly shouted. Sorry, but that won't fly. You two really stand out, you know. There was a full moon last night, so it was bright. Isn't that right? I turned to face the doorway and called out. 3 well-built fishermen, tanned black by the sun, nodded in agreement.
When did they?
The fishermen spoke one after another, ignoring the perplexed Eleanor and Rilla.
Yep, no doubt it was these 2. The beautiful mother-daughter pair was burned into my memory. They were causing a ruckus, saying the dad had apparently pushed his daughter in and to call an ambulance.
The men nodded.
They were going around telling everyone who came to see what the commotion was. Saying in this weirdly detailed way that the dad got mad his daughter was pregnant and pushed her into the sea. They were also asking folks if the principal of some academy really lives around here.
Seeing Eleanor and Rilla's faces, I could tell the memories were vividly coming back to them. The fishermen divulged even more detailed testimonies than when they talked to me.
Shut up. Don't talk so much. But it's the truth, you know. Yeah, that's right.
Eleanor and Rilla gnashed their teeth in frustration at the nonchalant fishermen. To think that the beauty you've been boasting about would backfire like this. I thanked the fishermen while glancing sideways at Eleanor and Rilla, who had grim expressions, and sent them home. I suddenly noticed that my in-laws, who had been silent until now, were seething with anger. Even my usually gentle in-laws seemed to be furious this time. Then, Garrett, who had been silent for a while, voiced his question. I know you guys despised Lola. I'm not particularly surprised, but... He cut off his words and tilted his head. I was just wondering how you happened to have a pregnancy test prank kit on hand. I didn't even know such things were sold online. Rilla also asked Eleanor.
I was curious too. Hey Mom, why did you have that thing?
Eleanor's face instantly stiffened.
Of course, I bought it to use on your dad.
But you always say that having just Rilla is enough? Well, in front of the troubled Eleanor, I thrust the bundle of photos at Garrett. It seems like there's demand for Eleanor. Other than you, Garrett. Garrett looked at the photos, utterly shocked. He snatched the bundle of photos from me, and also grabbed the documents from the detective, spreading them all over the large table and scrutinizing every detail. Madison let out an exasperated sigh in place of the speechless Garrett. Geez, what are you doing, Eleanor? My in-laws and Rilla, who peeked at the photos, were also surprised and dumbfounded. No wonder, as the scenes clearly showed Eleanor arm in arm with a young man, smiling as they entered and exited a hotel. Last year, I saw Eleanor going in and out of a hotel. So I hired a detective to investigate her conduct. I thought it might come in handy someday. Eleanor glared at me with a fierce expression.
Hiding and investigating someone. You have a really nasty personality, don't you?
Oh please, I'm no match for you, Eleanor. After crossing her arms and confronting me for a while, Eleanor scoffed through her nose. It seemed she decided to act defiant now that it had come to this.
You're just as stupid as Lola, aren't you? What did you say? You act like an elite, but you never even noticed that I was cheating all over the place. Do you think it's not possible because you're so confident in yourself? Deluded self-confidence is scary, isn't it?
She hurled sarcastic remarks at Garrett, whose face had turned red, with an arrogant attitude.
What are you dissatisfied with about me? Unlike at Madison's place, I haven't let you lack for money, and you have a cute daughter. You're a housewife just like you wanted, right? What more do you want?
Eleanor looked at Garrett, who was burning with anger, with a contemptuous gaze.
You're 51, I'm only 42. I married you for the money but soon regretted it. I thought it'd be a waste to be tied to one husband when I'm this young and beautiful. Don't screw with me.
Even in the face of Garrett's anger, Eleanor showed no sign of being intimidated.
If you don't like it, want a divorce? Fine, but Rilla will come with me, won't she? Because she likes mommy more than daddy. Right?
Eleanor smiled triumphantly.
I've been getting lots of allowance from the guys I tricked by pretending to be pregnant too. That pregnancy test is really handy. It was a miscalculation that someone saw me pushing you two into the sea. But just testimonies probably aren't enough to decisively arrest me.
At that line, I stopped the recording app on my smartphone. I immediately called the police. Yes, the culprit who pushed her husband and daughter into the sea has confessed. I recorded the audio evidence too. After hanging up, I said to the dumbfounded Eleanor with a smile, I found out one more thing during the investigation into your conduct. Turns out you were pressing your affair partners by saying I got pregnant and extorting money for surgery from them. That's... Eleanor was at a loss for words. But with it firmly recorded, she probably can't make excuses anymore. Eleanor fell silent for a bit, then gave a strained smile.
I just remembered an errand, so I'll head home first.
The moment she opened the door, she ran into two police officers.
Oh? Where are you going? You're suspected of assault, and also being sued for fraud. Could you please accompany us to the station? Assault? Pushing them into the sea was just a joke. It was an ebb tide at the time.
The police officers placated the protesting Eleanor with a practiced air.
Yes, we'll hear the rest at the station. You too, young lady. Huh? Me too?
The police told the shocked Rilla.
Multiple witnesses say they saw two women approaching the couple. Mom's the one who planned and carried it out. I had nothing to do with it.
Eleanor exploded at Rilla's assertion.
You're trying to pin the crime on me? We'll ask you at the station.
Now, let's go. The police urged Eleanor and Rilla and left the hotel. How did it come to this? Madison consoled Garrett, who had slumped to the floor, with sympathy.
You always let Rilla run wild and do as she pleased since she was little. It seems you were so smitten that you didn't say anything even when Eleanor was out partying at night. This is the bed you made for yourself.
Garrett, who normally would have snapped back at Madison, seemed to lack the energy to retort. He just held his head in his hands and let out a small groan of despair. After Eleanor and Rilla were taken in for voluntary questioning, my family and my in-laws checked out of the hotel. Only a haggard Garrett headed straight home, while the rest of us stopped by some tourist attractions on the way back to enjoy the rest of our trip. I had thought my in-laws would be saddened, But it turned out they had long been troubled by Rilla and Eleanor's selfish attitudes as well. "I hope the police give them a good talking to," Katie remarked, to which Alvin nodded with a grim expression. Rilla and Eleanor had teamed up to push Madison and Lola off the cliff. Or perhaps it was the work of just one of them. The two tried to blame each other, insisting they hadn't done it, but eyewitness testimonies led to the verdict that they were both guilty. Although Rilla was taken into custody, she was strictly warned and sent home since Madison and Lola didn't want to press criminal charges. Eleanor also received a suspended sentence and settled the matter by paying compensation to Madison and Lola. However, she was sued by multiple people for marriage fraud. Due to the malicious nature of her crimes and lack of remorse, she was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Naturally, Garrett and Eleanor got divorced. Garrett took custody of Rilla. Rilla had pretended to be a good kid at school, but her true colors were revealed with this incident and she was expelled. Afterward, she didn't work part-time and instead played around using the allowance she got from her grandparents. When she ran out, she would pester Garrett for money, so their days were filled with constant quarreling. Since the incident, Rilla stopped harassing Lola. It seemed she had been sternly warned by her grandparents that they would cut ties with her if she caused Lola any more trouble. The honest and obedient Lola was doted on by her grandparents more than ever. While working hard at her studies, Lola also seemed to be enjoying typical dates with her boyfriend. There will likely be all sorts of events regarding romance in the future. I silently vowed to myself to maintain the kind of relationship where Lola could confide in me as a woman if she was ever troubled. I got pregnant. Don't come back home. What? Was I not clear? I'm having a baby with Johnny. No way. Pearl, it's your fault. You neglected your husband under the guise of accompanying your mother, so you got what you deserved. Mila said this with a triumphant look. But I, without any disturbance, took the message "don't come back" quite literally. Really? I'd be delighted to. Johnny and Mila were dumbstruck by my unexpected reaction. Pearl. What are you saying? Aren't you angry that I cheated? Well, I was surprised at first, but not angry. Besides, I have a new home now. New home? What's that about? Yes, I have somewhere else to go. I don't need to bother with Johnny, whom I can't trust anymore. Mila can have him. I muttered that to myself. And these two were about to face an incredible disaster. I am Pearl, a 43-year-old working mother in construction. I have had a best friend from childhood, Mila. We've been hanging out since we were little. But in middle school, we became like delinquent friends due to our rebellious natures. That continued until high school graduation, but as we grew up, our lives took completely different paths. I have always hated studying, so instead I worked on self-improvement in my 20s, such as earning certifications. My efforts paid off, and my career got on the right track in my 30s. On the other hand, Mila spent her 20s and 30s partying, believing it is a waste not to. Now past 40, both unmarried. Mila didn't seem too concerned. But I, raised by a single mother after losing my father young, wanted to get married and repay my mother's upbringing. At work, most men close to my age were married. I casually asked my boss if he knew any eligible men. He introduced me to a single man close to my age. That's how I met Johnny. He was 2 years older than me, a construction company president. Serious and dignified. Johnny, who inherited the company from his parents, was work-focused like me. Busy with work and acquiring certifications, he hadn't been much interested in marriage. We clicked over having a lot in common, so we started dating. Within a year, we promised to marry. I told Mila the news. Really? That's great, Pearl. Congratulations. Thanks. Sorry I'm getting married before you. Don't worry about it. Just be happy. Mila seemed genuinely happy for me.
Thank you. You must come to the wedding.
Sure. I'll look forward to it. After informing Mila, all that was left was preparing for the wedding. Tomorrow, I'm visiting Johnny's family home for the first time. I was in a flutter of excitement. But I didn't know that the happiness would end in a blink of an eye. The next morning, I was getting ready with enthusiasm. What would Johnny's house be like? Though it's his family home, his parents have passed away. It's where Johnny now lives alone. I've always wanted to see his house. But he never invited me. It's quite far from my house, near the foot of a mountain. I planned to drive there, but Johnny offered to pick me up as the house was hard to find. Johnny said shyly while driving.
Well, it's quite rural, so don't be shocked.
No, I prefer quiet places to busy ones. Is it peaceful countryside? I'm really excited. I tried to lighten the mood, however. Johnny looked hesitant. It seemed like he wanted to imply don't expect too much. But to me, it's where my beloved one lives. The thought of seeing that was exciting. We drove over an hour after entering the neighboring town. We entered a dark bamboo grove, far from a peaceful pastoral scene. The car stopped in a place that felt like a creepy, abandoned area.
We're here. This is my house,
Johnny said, and where he dropped me off was a garage surrounded by debris. In front of me was an old house, probably over 100 years old.
So this is your... Yes, this is my house. It's quite old, but it's well built,
Johnny replied. I stood gaping, looking around every corner of the house. The property was large, but I naively thought that after marriage he would move out. However, Johnny's next words shocked me.
Well, come on in.
This is the house we'll live in together forever, so don't be shy.
What?
Living in this house forever after marriage? I asked Johnny, feeling faint.
Are we going to live here? It's nearly 2 hours by car from my office. Pearl, you can quit your job after we're married. My earnings are enough for us to live on.
I was stunned by Johnny's unexpected words. We had discussed our jobs, but he never mentioned wanting me to quit after marriage.
Why? I told you I love my job. Why decide I should quit without discussing it with me?
Even when I questioned him, Johnny looked puzzled and answered.
Isn't it common sense for a woman to become a housewife after marrying a well-off husband? My mother did the same. I thought we had a mutual understanding without saying.
I stood there, dumbfounded. I hadn't expected such an old-fashioned mindset in this day and age. From here, not only my company, but also my mother's house was far away. I currently live with my mother, and moving so far would be inconvenient. I was planning to discuss these things, but my mind went blank and I couldn't find the words. The house, indeed old and sturdy, had crumbling walls in places, and the floors creaked. The shower and toilet were outdated, and with few rooms, it would be inconvenient if we had children. Could I really live in this house forever? Seeing my anxious face, Johnny tried to calm me. Don't worry.
It might take some getting used to at first, but the charm of an old, antique house is great.
You'll find it comfortable soon. No, that's not the issue. I wanted to say, but couldn't. For now, I decided not to say anything and asked him to take me home before it gets too late. You should stay over, it's far, Johnny casually said, but I was not in the mood to stay. That night, I lay in bed early and thought. Right, we might start in Johnny's family home, but we can move eventually. I've been working all this time and have some savings. Surely Johnny can afford to build a new home. I decided to discuss this with him next time. On my next day off, I talked to Johnny about moving into a new house. But he didn't seem keen on the idea.
Why? It's a waste to move when we already have a house,
Johnny said, already set on living in his own home. Am I being selfish for caring about convenience to my workplace and family home? I felt a rising irritation. Yet, I didn't dislike Johnny, and we got married as planned. The wedding was grand, befitting a construction company owner. Mila attended, of course. Flashy and youthful-looking Mila stood out, attracting male attention. Even Johnny the groom.
"That beautiful woman is Pearl's friend?"
he asked. I felt a twinge of jealousy, despite being the bride. The wedding ended without a hitch, and our married life began. Johnny lived leisurely in his familiar home. I resigned from my job and became a housewife, but felt somewhat uneasy. So, I hatched a plan. Then one day, I received a call from the hospital where my mother was a patient. She had suddenly fallen ill and was hospitalized. I rushed to the hospital and entered the room where my mother is in.
"Mom, are you okay?"
"Pearl, sorry for worrying you," my mother replied, looking very unwell. According to the doctor, her condition wasn't good, and she needed a long-term hospital stay. I returned home to take care of my mother for a while. Then, I packed my things and told Johnny that I'd be away for some time to accompany my mother. But Johnny didn't seem too concerned about her.
"Ah, I see. Well, take your time,"
he said casually. I frowned at Johnny's reaction. It sounded as if I was going out for fun, despite me saying I was attending to my seriously ill mother. Yet, Johnny looked displeased at my expression.
"Huh? What's with that face? Did I say something wrong?"
"No, it's nothing," I replied. Come to think of it, Johnny was raised in a wealthy environment. Expecting him to understand was perhaps too much. So, I left without saying more and went back to the hospital. 3 months have almost passed since my mother was hospitalized. Her condition remains the same, requiring my constant attendance. But what bothers me is Johnny hasn't visited even once. Is he still holding a grudge because I frowned at his words? If so, that's rather childish. Lying in her bed, my mother looked at me worriedly.
"Pearl, is Johnny all right? Don't worry about me. Why don't you go back home?"
"It's okay, Mom. I do go home occasionally." I reassured her, not wanting to worry her further, but truthfully, I felt anxious. For the first month, I did check on the house. But Johnny was always in a bad mood and hardly spoke to me. I would just finish the housework and return to the hospital. Gradually, I started feeling like Johnny was managing on his own, and I wasn't needed. Alone at night, as my mother slept, I wondered, is this how things should be? Months passed with me lost in these thoughts, when I received a call. It was Mila.
"Hello?
"Pearl, it's been a while.
Just thought of you and called."
"Mila, really long time. How have you been?" Her voice uplifted my spirits. But something in Mila's reply seemed hesitant.
Yeah. I'm fine."
"Oh, okay." I felt the conversation turn awkward, beginning to feel unsure of what to talk about next. Then, Mila broached a new topic. "Hey, when are you coming back home next?"
"What?"
I hadn't told Mila I was staying away to be with my mother. Her question took me by surprise. But since she reached out after so long, I recovered myself and asked her back. "What's up, Mila? Did you call for something specific?"
No, nothing. Just wanted to hear your voice."
As Mila spoke.
"Hey, Mila!"
A familiar male voice called out in the background. Mila gasped.
"Oh."
And hurriedly ended the call. That voice. Could it be? A chill ran down my spine. It's been over 3 months since I stopped returning home. A bad feeling crept over me, and I decided to go home the next day. And the next day. After the morning rounds at the hospital, I hurried to my house. It was Sunday, so Johnny should be home. When I arrived, a bright red sports car occupied my usual parking space in the garage. That car seemed familiar. Entering the house, I saw stylish high heels in the entrance. I was right about my suspicion.
"Johnny! Are you here?"
I shouted from the entrance, and Johnny emerged, looking surprised.
Pearl! Why are you back suddenly? You should have told me you were coming. Why? These shoes in the car in the garage, they're Mila's, aren't they?
Yeah, Mila just happened to stop by.
Johnny stammered, clearly flustered. Then, Mila appeared, dressed in a baggy overalls dress.
Idiot! Don't come out!
Johnny scolded her, but Mila didn't seem to care.
Why?
It's not like it's a secret. We had to talk about it eventually, she said defiantly. Mila stood there boldly, not showing any remorse. Her outfit was unusually simple for her, a long dress covering her ankles. It looked almost like a maternity dress. As I pondered, Mila revealed a shocking truth. I got pregnant. Don't come back home.
What?
Did you not hear me? I'm pregnant with Johnny's baby, she exclaimed.
No way, really?
Standing aside, Mila blurted out while Johnny, with a sigh, just great, kept his gaze downcast. Perhaps Johnny wished to have this conversation in a more composed state. Pearl, it's your fault. You were neglecting your husband under the guise of accompanying your mother. You brought this on yourself. Mila said this with a triumphant look. But I remained calm and collected. Seeing my calm demeanor, Mila said with puffing up her cheeks, what's with the act? I heard you don't even like this house. That's fine by me. Old as it may be, the property's spacious, the neighbors aren't nosy, and above all, Johnny's kind and wealthy. What more could I ask for? Johnny, buoyed by her high opinion of him, suddenly changed his awkward expression. When I first saw Mila at the wedding, it was love at first sight. So I figured, why not live with Mila instead of Pearl, who doesn't even like this house? That's right, Johnny called me after finding my contact in the guest list saying Pearl isn't coming back, so please, come over. I was unsure at first, but how could I say no when he needed me so much? Ah, I see. I responded indifferently to Mila's smug love story. Just playing cool, aren't you? You must be so upset. But let me remind you, Johnny's baby is growing inside me. Don't bother coming back here. With that, I decided to graciously accept her invitation with a smile.
Really? I'd be delighted to.
My unexpected reaction left Johnny and Mila dumbfounded. Pearl, what are you saying? Aren't you angry about my affair? Well, I was surprised at first, but not angry. Besides, I have a new home now. A new home? What are you talking about? Johnny looked utterly bewildered, so I gave him further explanation. You see, I've been house hunting since we got married. This house was fine initially, but it's not practical for children. There are no schools nearby. Mila looked startled by my words. She hadn't considered schooling for her unborn child.
Why didn't you discuss this with me?
Because you didn't want to move from here. So, I took it upon myself to find something. But that's no longer your concern.
What do you mean?
Johnny can be so oblivious. He had an affair and even got her pregnant. There's no way we'd be moving together now.
I mean, you should stay here with Mila and your baby. You're well off, so just enroll your child in a distant school and drive them back and forth.
As I spoke, Johnny nodded. Right. In agreement. Mila, wide-eyed, finally addressed me. Pearl, you're oddly compliant. How can you so easily accept Johnny and me?
No, I've just lost faith in Johnny, who never once visited my seriously ill mother in the hospital. I've decided to live with her in the new house. We've arranged for home nursing care.
Are you really not angry about the affair? You won't demand compensation later? Johnny is always so self-centered. The epitome of a coddled upbringing. Don't worry. I'm not that petty. I replied with a slight smile. I knew they would face their own karma eventually. And so, Johnny and I divorced. I moved into the new house with my mother. It's barrier-free designed, so she can recover comfortably. It's also close to the hospital, which gives me peace of mind. As for Johnny, he began his married life with Mila in that house. Mila's belly was getting bigger, but there was no hospital nearby. So, for checkups, Johnny apparently had to drive for over an hour to take her. Even then, they might have been able to have a happy married life. After a while, I got a call from Johnny.
Hey! Why do we have to leave our house?
I thought the day had finally come. Did your uncle visit?
Yeah, he did. Did you know and hide it from me?
Johnny's uncle is his father's brother.
Huh? You should have known. That our house is owned by your uncle.
Oh. It seemed Johnny had forgotten that and continued living in that house. I learned this when I visited Johnny's relatives before our marriage. When Johnny's father, the eldest son, was dying, he entrusted the ownership of the family home to his younger brother, the uncle. It seems they thought Johnny was too unreliable to inherit it, even though he was the successor. In other words, Johnny was living there with his uncle's permission. I totally forgot about that. But yesterday, my uncle suddenly came and said, "I believe I told my wife that I was selling this land. Why did you keep such an important thing a secret?" Hearing this,
I think your uncle is quite the actor.
I couldn't help but to laugh inwardly. I had told the uncle everything up to our divorce. He was furious and promised to give Johnny a hard time. "I'm sorry. I was about to tell you about selling the house, but then you got Mila pregnant. I thought it would be best to leave the rest to you too. But it's okay. You have enough money to move anywhere, right?" "Yeah, about that." Johnny's voice suddenly turned gloomy. I knew what he was going to say, but pretended not to know.
What happened?
"I got demoted from being the president. My uncle said I was too unreliable and the employees wouldn't follow me. He told me to start over as a regular employee. So my salary is less than half now."
Oh, really?
I responded nonchalantly, but I already knew all this from Johnny's uncle. "Mila is angry. She wanted to remodel and expand the house into a spacious mansion on the land we lived in. After hearing about moving and the salary cut, she hasn't spoken to me since last night. What should I do?" Johnny sounded almost tearful. Mila was indeed after Johnny for his money.
Well, that's not my problem anymore. You should figure it out yourself. What? No, wait!
Johnny tried to stop me, but I didn't care and hung up. The next moment, Mila called. I didn't want to answer, knowing what it was about, but she would probably keep calling if I ignored her. So I reluctantly answered. Mila's voice was furious.
Hey! What are you going to do about this? It's all your fault, Pearl. I thought I had married a rich man.
Mila spat out the words I expected.
Well, it's not so bad. Johnny is a kind husband to you. And it's not like he is unemployed. That's not good enough. You knew, didn't you? That we had to move out. And you kept quiet. That's so unfair. What if I had told you earlier? If the ideal life for you became impossible, you would have left. That would be sad for the baby.
Mila had no comeback to that.
Whatever life you lead, you're going to have a family now. You need to do your best.
I said just that and hung up again. I had no resentment left for losing Johnny. I just realized I had a poor judgment of men. Forced to move, Johnny and Mila apparently moved into Mila's parents' house. Though her parents were angry about Mila marrying Johnny, who took me away, they warmly welcomed them for the sake of their coming grandchild. Then, years later, Johnny and Mila, with their child, came to see me. I hadn't told them where I moved, but they had seen me in town and followed me to find out where I lived. I wondered why they went to such lengths. Pearl, are you there? Actually, I came by because my child's kindergarten entrance exam results were announced today, and we were in the area. Mila barged into my house with her affected tone. Even as a mother now, she still sports flashy makeup and fashion. I didn't really want to see her, but fearing what she might say if I acted coldly, I responded. "You haven't changed." "So? How did it go?" I wasn't interested in Mila, but knowing she'd start something anyway, I asked. "Listen to this. My child got into the best kindergarten in the area." "Ah, so you came all this way to tell me that?" "Well, congratulations." She clearly came to boast. "That's right. My child takes after the father in intelligence and, thanks to resembling me, made a great impression at the interview." Mila droned on with her bragging. "Oh, is that so? Good for you." I replied sarcastically, to which Mila, disliking my tone, glared at me. "Despite someone's doing, we're happily living as a family now. Having a marriage and a family is wonderful, isn't it, Johnny?" Yeah, that's right." Johnny, who had been silent behind Mila, finally spoke up. Their son, indeed resembling Mila, glared at me with a proud expression. He seemed to have inherited Mila's high pride too. "Speaking of the top kindergarten." "Ha ha ha. Single woman like you wouldn't know about kindergartens, right? It's Nakatani Kindergarten nearby." Mila scoffed at me, so I quickly retorted. "What? Who's single? I'm remarried." At this, both Johnny and Mila looked shocked. "You're kidding, right? Isn't this your childhood home with your mother?" "Yes. I have my husband living here with me." As I said this, my husband Barrett appeared. "Guests? Please, come in." "Ah. You are." Seeing Barrett, the two of them exclaimed in surprise. Recognizing them, Barrett responded in a reminiscent tone. "Ah, you must be Christy's parents from the other day's interview." The interviewer, was it?" "Yes, sorry for the late introduction. I'm Barrett, principal of Nakatani Kindergarten. Are you friends of Pearl? Thank you for your support on behalf of my wife." Hearing Barrett was the principal, they froze. "Wait, the principal is Pearl's husband?" "Indeed. Who would have thought someone like you would marry the principal of a prestigious private kindergarten? How did you meet?" Mila sneered at me. "Unlike the old days, I've worked hard on myself. A woman like me. I didn't deserve to be mocked by Mila now." "We met at work. My company was contracted for the kindergarten's reconstruction." "Yes, I was attracted to her hard work, so I initiated our relationship," Barrett said with a shy smile. "Oh, that's right. Barrett, let me introduce them. This is my ex-husband, Johnny, and his wife, Mila, who took him from me." "You're making us look bad." "That's right. What are you saying in front of the child?" Both were flustered, facing the principal of their child's soon-to-be kindergartner. It's a prestigious kindergarten with strict family backgrounds. Knowing their complicated family circumstances might be a problem. Mila timidly asked Barrett. So, about the enrollment?" Barrett's expression turned stern for a moment but then softened. "Let's see how your child does in our environment first." "So, our child can enroll?" Johnny and Mila looked relieved. However, they didn't realize how challenging life in the kindergarten could be. Life at the kindergarten turned out to be a disaster for Johnny and Mila. Because in our school, parent connections are strong. Even a hint of bad reputation spreads quickly. So, the rumor that Mila stole the principal's wife's ex-husband spread like wildfire. Since it's a gathering of parents who are serious about their children's education, such rumors quickly isolated Johnny and Mila among the other parents. The parents' behavior negatively impacted the children. Innocent Christy ended up isolated from his friends, crying every day. "I want to quit kindergarten." It was sad to see. Eventually, they had to leave the kindergarten, and Johnny's family disappeared from our lives. Later, Barrett heard from another kindergarten principal. Johnny's family had moved Christy to a public kindergarten. However, with many locals there, similar rumors spread. Johnny and Mila gradually found it uncomfortable to stay in the area. Before long, they left Christy behind and went somewhere far away. Recently, Mila's parents have been taking Christy to and from kindergarten and attending events. They're friendly with the neighbors, ensuring Christy can attend kindergarten comfortably, mindful of others. Previously indulgent, Mila's parents seem to have given up on Mila, focusing on raising Christy instead. I was worried about Christy, but hearing this from Barrett, I felt relieved. Sometime later, Mila's parents came to apologize for everything.
We're truly sorry for the late apology. We wanted to bring Mila, but she absolutely refused.
Is Mila at home? I was surprised, having heard Johnny and his wife were missing. According to her parents, Johnny and Mila got divorced, being unable to cope with poverty. Mila returned home alone. But Christy doesn't see her as a mother and ignores her at home. Time passed, and I gave birth to my first child, a daughter, at a local hospital. I made many mom friends. Though I lost a childhood friend, I look forward to spending time with moms in similar situations. Barrett took paternity leave and is being a supportive father. This might be my happiest time. No, I shall continue enjoying parenthood, blessed with a good family and friends. Like my mother, a single mom, I want to shower my daughter with love. Even if I once went in the wrong direction, I'll trust my daughter, family, friends, and more importantly in myself. I vow to live strongly as a mother.
Come on, swim faster or you'll drown.
From way above me, I could hear the laughter of my husband, who had pushed me into the river. I had broken both my legs a month ago. There was no way I could swim. As I desperately struggled to keep from sinking in the cold water, my husband said something. Hearing that, all the patience I had been holding on to felt foolish. My name is Isabella. I'm a 26-year-old office worker. I have a husband, Joe, who is 34 and also an office worker. Though we're a few years apart, his vast life experience has been a support to me in many ways. Joe and I met at work, where he was my boss. Initially, Joe made the first move, but I was drawn to him for his competence and leadership in various situations. Our relationship smoothly progressed to marriage. Working for a company with branches nationwide, I transferred to a different branch after getting married, feeling nervous yet fulfilled in my new environment. As a dual-income couple, we shared household chores. This company is ideal for me, eager to learn everything I can here, making studying indispensable even amidst a busy schedule. Joe also worked late, which motivated me to do my best. Being in the same company, we could easily understand what the other was working on and share daily events, making conversations with Joe very enjoyable. Initially, things were going well, but at some point, when I consulted Joe about work as usual.
So you've gotten to handle such tasks now. Well, do your best.
He responded somewhat coldly. The Joe I knew before would listen until I was satisfied and think of solutions together. I felt a bit lonely, but wondered if I had been a burden. Joe was busy, and I was no longer a newcomer. Telling myself that I should be able to solve things on my own by now, I consulted my new boss when in real trouble and tried not to discuss work at home. Then, on payday,
"How much did you earn this month?"
Joe asked for the first time. We had agreed to contribute a fixed amount from our salaries for living expenses and bills without knowing each other's exact incomes. It was unusual for Joe to ask such a question, but seeing no reason to hide it, I showed him my payslip. Then Joe, shocked, said,
All this without overtime. Don't joke with me. When did you start earning so much?
Far from being happy about the increased household income, Joe started treating me with a hostile attitude from that day on. Looking back, I remember hearing that Joe had an unusually high pride and only liked being around people who could boost his self-esteem.
It's because I've been sharing the housework that you can earn like this. I want to get promoted too, but I've been holding back.
Joe said that and instructed me to take over all the household chores.
A wife should play a supporting role to her husband and be modest,
he said abusively. Shocked, but verbally compliant. Understood. Please focus on your work, I said, while internally taking it as a challenge to manage all the housework and still excel at my job. However, seeing me juggle work and all the household chores, Joe would say things like,
I wish you'd just break down already.
Or,
can't you clean more thoroughly? I hate it when the room doesn't look like a showroom.
I tried to brush it off, but it was undeniably stressful. Perhaps it was wrong to keep thinking about divorce every day, whether at home or work. One day on my way to work, I missed a step on the station stairs and tumbled down a long way. I don't remember falling, but it must have been a bad fall because I ended up breaking both legs. Fortunately, no one else was involved in the accident during the morning rush, but I had to be hospitalized for a while. When Joe visited the hospital, he seemed annoyed and laughed.
Lately, you've been too proud of your work success. This is your punishment.
And said,
your fractures are nothing serious, so come back home soon.
And left. After that, Joe did visit daily but only to angrily say,
the house is dirty, come back soon.
Without a word of concern for me. I explained the situation to my workplace and started working from the hospital. When Joe tried to take away the laptop, saying,
you're really greedy for money. I told you not to earn more than me.
I quickly responded,
I've already informed my boss, and I have work scheduled today. If you don't give it back, I'll have to call and say you took it.
Which made him return it with a click of his tongue, perhaps fearing it would become widely known since we work at the same company. Despite expressing how much he disliked me, Joe continued to visit my hospital room daily after work to complain. Upon finally returning home after my hospital stay, the room was extremely dirty.
I've left your work for you. You love work and housework, so you must be happy,
Joe said, but I was still in a wheelchair, unable to walk. Trying to clean what I could reach, like the desk.
Wait, you still can't stand and work? Taking too long to heal. Isn't it because you're always sitting in that wheelchair?
He criticized. I wanted to divorce him right there and then, but I couldn't move properly until my legs healed. I couldn't tell the hospital, where I had planned to have Joe take care of me post-divorce, that I wanted to be readmitted, so I endured until I fully recovered, thinking it was just a matter of patience. I told myself that overcoming this would make me stronger, and I'd divorce Joe, living each day without consulting anyone. One day, Joe's attitude changed completely.
How about we go see a movie? There's something I want to see,
he suggested. Though I felt a bit happy, the change was so drastic that it felt odd, so I replied,
it's unusual for you to suggest that. I still have chores to do, so feel free to go by yourself.
But Joe said,
actually, my boss found out about my behavior and your situation and gave me an earful. I've been a burden till now, so I want us to go together. We haven't been out recently, and I want Isabella to take a break as a token of my gratitude.
Then he asked,
what else needs to be done?
And took care of everything. It had been a while since we went out together. Though I was suspicious, Joe tends to change his attitude quickly if someone in a position of authority speaks to him. If his boss had spoken to him, maybe he truly wanted to change. With that thought, I felt slightly happy, and given how tense I'd been every day, I decided to indulge in the break and agreed to go out. He helped me into the car, and we started our drive. The cinema was relatively close, so I didn't think it would be too much of a burden for him to drive, but we kept moving away from the direction of the cinema I knew. Curiously, I asked, "Isn't the cinema in that direction?" Joe replied with a smile. "The local cinema wouldn't feel special, right? I thought we'd go to a bigger one today." Feeling reassured, I let Joe take the lead and soon fell asleep in the car, tired from the daily grind. "We're here." Joe's voice woke me up, and we were at a deserted river, with no cinema in sight. Confused, I asked, "What's going on?" Joe said, "The weather's nice, how about we take a commemorative photo?" And grabbed my arm tightly, trying to pull me out of the car. Suddenly frightened, I resisted, but with my legs being weak and the strength of a man being overwhelming, I was forcibly dragged out. Without being put back in my wheelchair, the pain of dragging my legs made me groan. He dragged me near a bridge, gripping my legs as if to lift me, and I felt a fear like never before. "Stop!" I involuntarily screamed, but with no one around to help, I felt nothing but despair at the thought of being thrown off. Then Joe, checking to make sure no one was around and annoyed, said, "Damn it! Don't make a noise! It'll be trouble if someone calls the cops!" And forcefully pushed me into the river. It happened in an instant. Unlike in dramas, I didn't see the face of the person pushing me or my life flash before my eyes. I just fell into the river. In an instant, not understanding what had happened, I looked up from the river, desperately asking for help from Joe while angry, but he said, "Better swim fast or you'll drown. Don't be mad just because you fell into the river. Maybe you need a little hardship, huh?" And then he tried to leave. I pleaded, "Please help me. I'll do anything you say from now on." Even though I didn't mean it, I thought it was the only way to be saved. Still, Joe said, "You're healed, right? Swim back home." And laughed, then left without trying to help, drove away in his car. Desperately wanting to live, I managed to grab onto a floating log, struggling with the pain in my legs and my inability to move properly, let alone my poor swimming skills, teetering between life and death. If no one came to help. Just then, "Are you okay? Hold on, I'm coming to help you." A man hurried from the shore. A man with a large empty plastic bottle swam to me, gave it to me for buoyancy, and then pulled me to shore, saving me. After being urgently transported, "Thank you, really, thank you so much," I said to the man, crying from gratitude. "No problem at all. My name is Brian. I was fishing a bit away and saw a woman being forcibly taken out of a car. I was shocked and sorry I couldn't reach you before you got wet," he replied. Despite everything happening so quickly, from being pulled out of the car to being pushed into the river, I was grateful for his help. "Not at all. You saved my life," I expressed my thanks. After sharing with Brian and the doctor about Joe's usual behavior at home and what happened this time, both were outraged and immediately reported it. The next day, to witness Joe's arrest, Brian and I went home together. I was still not fully healed, so I was in a wheelchair. The police were waiting for Joe as he returned home from work. Seeing me and Brian, Joe looked between us and mockingly said, "Did you have an affair and get in trouble with the police? Your life is over." Laughing. Confused by his absurd conclusion, the police said, "What are you talking about? We're here to take care of you," and handcuffed Joe. Joe, yelling, said, "What did I do? Who is this guy? Explain!" Trying to grab me even as the police restrained him. Astonished, I said, "Did you forget what you did to me? Dragging me out of the car and pushing me into the river?
That's a crime, isn't it?
Looking straight into Joe's eyes.
But you're alive, so I don't see why I'd be arrested.
Joe retorted nonsensically. Being alive doesn't justify anything. Joe didn't apologize for anything he had done. Far from it, he insisted he was not at fault, and to me, he no longer seemed like a husband but something devoid of human compassion. The act of throwing someone into the river, given the real possibility of death resulting from it, is considered attempted murder. The police explained carefully. Joe had heard of fractures but never experienced one himself. Many around him had suffered fractures and seemed to live normally, so Joe perceived it as a minor injury.
I thought fractures healed quickly, and given Isabella's resilience, I assumed she'd easily climb out of the river unharmed.
Joe argued, claiming his arrest was an overreaction. He also assumed my absence from home was due to my reluctance to do housework, maintaining his innocence. Then, Brian, who had been silent till now.
All I've heard is you justifying your actions. It seems you're not concerned about Isabella's injuries. From what I witnessed, your indifference is unbelievable.
He spoke up. Joe scoffed.
You claim to have seen the scene, but there was no one there, was there? Do you have proof you were present?
To which Brian countered, showing Joe a video.
There's plenty of evidence.
Though taken from a distance, it clearly captured Joe dropping me into the river.
When I arrived, Isabella was nearly drowning, teetering on the edge of life and death. You wouldn't have seen, having left after dropping her. It's hard to tell from above, but the current was strong.
Brian continued.
From the bridge, it might have seemed deserted, but the shore had people like me fishing, or couples jogging, surprisingly many witnesses. They all provided evidence for Isabella.
Brian proudly showed Joe the videos. Joe's face visibly paled as if in a cartoon.
This was taken by another couple. As someone with a loved one, I find this unforgivable. They insisted you must pay for your actions.
Brian silenced Joe. Frustrated and unable to retort, Joe could only glare at us. Seeing him, I said, "Showing this in court will certainly demonstrate the malice in your actions." Finally conceding. I'm sorry. Joe apologized. He pleaded, "Please, I have a job. Spare me the arrest and the trial." But I realized his apology was only out of fear of his company finding out. Unforgiven, we proceeded to trial. Upon hearing of the trial, Joe protested.
I apologized. What more do you want? I'll fight this in court. I won't let you have her way.
His outcry didn't deter me. I was determined to see the trial through. With decisive evidence in hand and Brian's support, I was able to calmly face Joe to the end. Joe insisted that fractures were minor injuries that everyone around him recovered from easily, attempting to depict me as lazy, but no one was swayed. I had been discharged from the hospital to continue rehabilitation at home, as explained by the doctor, not because I was fully healed. Joe's attempt to diagnose me without medical expertise only garnered sympathy for me from everyone present. The judge, after viewing the evidence I brought, handed down a swift prison sentence without probation to Joe, citing the maliciousness of his actions. Even after the verdict, Joe refused to give up.
The judge and police are all deceived. Is she even really fractured? If so, her suffering seems like an act.
And
stop this nonsense and just obey me like before. What happened to you, Isabella?
He ranted. To which I quietly responded, "The one who is wrong here is you." Joe's continued slander worsened the judge's impression, extending his sentence, as he inflicted more pain upon himself through his actions. Finally, everything ended, and I was free from Joe through divorce, feeling both exhausted and relieved. The more I put effort into my work, the more Joe used to get angry in the past. But now, I can focus entirely on what I want. It's as if Joe never existed. I concentrate on what's in front of me and steadily build my career. Fortunately, my workplace had no one who undermined others' character. And the depressive state Joe's attitude had induced in me gradually improved, allowing me to reclaim my former self. I also moved out of the cramped house I had lived in, enjoying a more elegant lifestyle, managing household chores and indulging in my interests as if reclaiming my lost time. Life is good now. Maybe marriage isn't for me for a while, I mused, noticing Brian looking at me sadly. The person I am today exists thanks to Brian, who saved me when I was drowning in the river. He was there for me, exhausted in both body and mind, after the trial ended and the divorce was finalized. He accompanied me during my hospital stay and my first trial, which is why I desperately wanted to express my gratitude by inviting him out for a meal on my treat today. Yet, considering Brian's busy daily schedule, I felt it wouldn't be right to invite him out too frequently, so I decided this would be a one-time gesture. Expecting the conversation to remain formal, I was surprised how well we got along, realizing hours had passed. I looked at the watch and realized,
Sorry for taking up your valuable time. Let's call it a day. I had fun. Thank you,
I said, preparing to leave, but Brian asked, "Can I invite you out again sometime?" With a smile. Relieved he had enjoyed himself, we parted ways. Following Brian's invitation, we grew closer through multiple meetings, eventually dating and, surprisingly, marrying. Despite my initial apprehensions about a second marriage, Brian proved to be the ideal partner, supporting my career without jealousy or interference, enhancing my performance. Our relationship, built on mutual respect, allowed us to lead vibrant lives. Brian's hobby of fishing became a shared interest, helping me overcome my trauma of nearly drowning. Thanks to Brian's kindness, I've been able to live freely and happily. You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person. With that, my sister looked at me triumphantly. It's been 5 years since I got married, and while taking care of my father at my parents' home, I've been undergoing fertility treatments. My sister got married and was blessed with a child within 6 months. 2 months into her pregnancy, she returned to our parents' home for the birth. When I point out that my sister does nothing around the house, she coldly snaps back at me. "Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me." My name is Johanna, I'm 35 years old. I live with my husband Andrew, and my sister Camilla, taking care of our father, Richard. Andrew and I got married 5 years ago, and we've been struggling to have children, currently undergoing fertility treatments. Camilla also got married and lives in a condominium with her husband, William, who is often away on business trips, leaving her alone at home a lot. Claiming it was for early birth preparation, she moved in with us, where Richard and my husband and I live, 2 months into her pregnancy. Our mother passed away early from illness, so Richard raised Camilla and me by himself. However, Camilla has always been troublesome, causing problems ever since she was a child. In elementary school, she would hit other kids, and Richard was often called to the school to apologize. We hoped she would calm down as she grew older, but that never happened. She kept causing problems until she graduated high school, constantly troubling Richard. Richard had to go around apologizing to people, paying for damages, and was always exhausted from cleaning up after Camilla. Feeling sorry for Richard, I helped around the house as much as I could, cooking and doing laundry, so that he could have a bit of rest. Putting ourselves last, Richard devoted himself to raising us. I wanted to ease Richard's burden, so I studied whenever I had the chance. My hard work paid off, and I was able to attend a prestigious university and land a job at a major company. Now, I work remotely while taking care of Richard. Camilla, who moved in with us a month ago, does not do any housework and doesn't care for Richard, despite the trouble she caused him. Instead, she says, "Hey, big sis, isn't today's dinner too plain? I'm pregnant, so I need nutrition. Make a more luxurious dinner tonight. Oh, and polish my shoes before I go out." She treats me like a housekeeper, ordering me around. My sister, having become pregnant before me, thinks she has the upper hand.
Why don't you take care of your own things for once?
I was stressed out by Camilla's inactivity. Lying on the living room sofa, she glared at me.
"You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person."
She sneered.
"What a thing to say!"
I would have children if I could. But that's not possible for me. Filled with frustration, I looked down. Seeing my distress, she added insult to injury.
"Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me."
Camilla snapped coldly. Tears welled up, and I was left speechless, so I left the room. I went to my bedroom and cried into my pillow. Yet, I kept telling Camilla every day that it's better for her and the baby if she moved a bit, and to take care of herself. One day, perhaps in a bad mood,
"Enough, you're so annoying. Can't you just leave the house? Just come here for Dad's care and the chores."
she blurted out something outrageous.
"If you dislike me that much, why don't you go back home?"
To which she replied,
"Going back home would just increase my workload. What do you think I'm here for? You're the housekeeper, just listen to what I say and keep quiet."
Camilla said, mocking me. Realizing it was a waste of time, I started preparing for work. While I worked, Camilla lounged on the sofa, eating snacks and watching TV. I debated telling Andrew about the situation but didn't want to drag him into a sibling quarrel. Camilla puts on a good front in front of Andrew, so it probably looks like we're living harmoniously. While I was hanging laundry, "How long are you planning to stay here?" Camilla suddenly asked. "I have to take care of Dad. I can't just leave," I said while hanging the clothes.
"It's going to be a problem if you don't leave. The baby is coming soon. You need to free up your room for us."
My husband and I were using the bedroom that Richard used to occupy. This room is the largest in the house. "That's impossible." I refused, and she just said, Okay," and backed off easily. The next day, while I was working, Camilla, usually lazing on the sofa, seemed to be up to something. Busy with work, I didn't pay much attention until I went to my room and was shocked. The long-running manga I had collected since childhood, and the accessories and clothes I bought as a reward for myself upon employment, were all gone. Instead, the floor was covered with baby items. I rushed down the stairs and confronted Camilla relaxing in the living room.
"Camilla, where did you put the stuff from my room?"
"Eh?"
"It was in the way, so I sold it. If you're not leaving, we need the space. Your room is going to be the baby's room. I cleaned it up for you, so you should be thankful,"
she said nonchalantly, showing no sign of remorse.
"It's unacceptable to sell someone's belongings without permission. Bring them back now."
I'm usually calm, but I couldn't remain so this time. Each item was filled with memories and treasured by me.
"Why are you so angry?" "You always say to move if I can, so I did while I could. There's no money left, just give up,"
she said, disinterestedly shifting her gaze back to the TV. Among the items Camilla sold was the engagement ring Andrew had given me. I insisted she buy it back, but she claimed she had no money and went back to her room. I told Andrew about everything that had happened so far, including today's incident, and apologized for the engagement ring being sold. Andrew was shocked to hear the story but immediately went to buy back the ring, and thankfully, we were able to retrieve it. Since then, I started paying more attention to Camilla's actions. I noticed that Camilla goes out a lot for someone who is pregnant. She lazes around during the day, but leaves in the evening and often returns late at night or in the morning. I hadn't worried about it before since Camilla has always been more active at night, but I wondered what she could be doing while pregnant. I discussed it with Richard and Andrew, and we decided to investigate her actions. One day, I secretly followed Camilla, who had dressed up and left the house. She walked confidently, as if she knew exactly where she was going, and entered a busy downtown area. She stopped in front of a hotel and waited for someone. A man arrived, and it was clear he wasn't William. I had suspected something, but seeing them enter the hotel arm in arm confirmed my fears. I immediately contacted William. When I told him about Camilla's affair, he was shocked, having thought she had come back home early for the birth, but he quickly hired a detective agency to investigate. William reported the investigation results to us while Camilla was out. The investigation confirmed Camilla's affair. Moreover, from conversations between Camilla and her lover, Johnny, it was revealed that the child Camilla was carrying was Johnny's. Hearing the report, Richard turned pale and, in tears,
William, my foolish daughter has done something terrible. She's ruined her life. I don't know how I can ever make amends.
He apologized to William.
Richard, please don't apologize. I'm angry at Camilla, not at you. We may be family, but we are different people. It's my fault for not seeing her true nature.
Camilla betraying such a man of character was beyond foolish. We agreed to gather on Saturday when Camilla would be home, and then we adjourned. Saturday. The sound of the front door opening echoed.
I'm sorry for intruding.
William appeared in the living room.
William, you didn't say you were coming today. What's up? The baby's gotten quite big, hasn't it?
Camilla, rubbing her belly, smiled and spoke to William, oblivious that he knew everything.
Camilla, is the child in your belly really mine?
William asked Camilla without changing his expression.
What are you saying? Are you accusing me of cheating?
Camilla angrily retorted to William's words.
Camilla, I know everything. The child is Johnny's, isn't it? I had a detective agency investigate, so lying is pointless. I can't continue a marriage with someone who cheats. Let's get a divorce.
William spoke calmly and matter-of-factly. Camilla, panicking, tried to pretend she knew nothing.
William, what are you talking about? The child in my belly is yours. We're not getting a divorce.
Camilla denied it, but William placed the photos from the detective agency of Johnny and her on the table.
Can you still say you haven't cheated after seeing these?
Camilla looked shocked at the photos, but claimed,
It's not what it looks like. He was just giving me advice. It's terrible you would doubt me.
There's no need for hotel meetings for advice,
I retorted, frustrated by Camilla's refusal to admit her affair.
So, how do you explain this?
William played an audio recording obtained by the detective agency.
Camilla, your belly has gotten quite big.
Yes, it's because it's your child. It's going to be adorable.
He doesn't know it's my child, does he?
Don't worry, William is clueless.
I married him for his money anyway. I want to raise your child without any financial troubles, so it had to be someone wealthy.
William stopped the recording there.
"Too bad I found out," he said.
Camilla's face turned pale. Upon hearing the audio for the first time, Richard, with his face flushed red and shaking with anger.
"Camilla, do you not have a conscience? All you think about is using people. It's high time you learn some shame,"
he exclaimed. Perhaps realizing there was no way out, she defiantly retorted.
"It's my child, no matter who the father is. It will be Dad's first grandchild regardless, so what's the problem? I'm going to have this child and raise it here."
Unable to contain my anger at Camilla's defiant outburst.
"Camilla, how much trouble do you have to cause Dad before you're satisfied? Do you have any idea how much you've made him suffer because of you?"
I yelled louder than I ever have before. Camilla turned to me.
"A useless person who can't even have children has no right to speak. Dad would be happier living with me, who can show him a grandchild's face, than with an unfilial person like you."
And she laughed triumphantly as if she had one.
"What did you say?" I exploded. "Jealous because Dad pays more attention to me, right? Always playing the perfect student, but now you're the inferior one because you can't have children. The baby chose me, not you, so you should leave this house." "What do you know, Camilla? How much do you think I've suffered because of you?" "Both of you, stop." "Camilla, I don't care about the grandchild, just leave."
Richard intervened. Camilla looked stunned by Richard's demand.
"Eh? Dad, why do I have to leave? It should be her." "Camilla, I'm done cleaning up your messes. I can't deal with this anymore. I don't care about seeing the grandchild, just leave within a week."
Camilla couldn't accept Richard's words. "That's cruel. Dad, are we not family?" And with that, she began to cry.
"You only think about yourself, acting out of self-interest. You've belittled Johanna and now betrayed William. You might want my inheritance, but I've decided to leave most of it to Johanna, who has sincerely taken care of me and kept our home together."
Richard declared this in front of everyone. Soon after, William added,
"Camilla, please sign here. I'll be filing for divorce immediately after this. And don't forget about the alimony."
Camilla, cornered by everyone, slammed the table.
"Is it fun for all of you to gang up on me? What's wrong with loving someone I truly care about? I've always loved Johnny. You should be grateful that a dull man like you got to marry me and was about to have a family."
She yelled.
"Is that all you have to say? Then sign quickly."
William remained calm throughout. He no longer seemed to regard Camilla as a fellow human. His look was akin to observing an animal.
"If you divorce me, you'll never find another wife, William. Don't come regretting it later."
Camilla angrily signed the divorce papers and threw them at William. William filed the papers immediately, and they became strangers. The next day, just to be sure, a DNA test was conducted to confirm if the baby really was Johnny's. The test scientifically proved the baby wasn't William's, and when Richard told Camilla to leave, "Why should I be the one to leave? Shouldn't the failure over there leave?" Camilla lashed out. Having no place to go after being kicked out, Camilla went to Johnny's, only to run into his wife. A confrontation ensued, leading to Johnny's divorce. Camilla, playing the tragic heroine denied true love, happily remarried the man she truly loved, and gave birth to a healthy baby. Johnny, who had entered into a marriage of convenience due to his failing family business, lost his financial support and assets. Previously a nominal president at his wife's company, Johnny couldn't find work anywhere and resorted to part-time jobs to scrape by. Camilla and Johnny, living in a cheap apartment with shared toilets and no bath, struggled with living expenses due to alimony payments to Johnny's ex-wife and William. Constant financial stress led to frequent arguments, and despite wanting a divorce, neither could afford to leave, resulting in a loveless marriage. Where did their true love go? Camilla struggled daily with odd jobs, part-time work, childcare, and household chores. Unaccustomed to housework, the home was always a mess. Camilla, who had always lived lavishly on others' money, now wore old clothes and an apron, a stark contrast to her former stylish self. Despite their hardships, both put effort into parenting. I returned to a peaceful life, taking care of Richard. I occasionally keep in touch with William, who I worried might become distrustful of women. However, he reconnected with his first love at a reunion and is now in a serious relationship. The day William told me he had a girlfriend, I received another piece of joyful news. Our continued fertility treatments were successful, and we were expecting a child. Actually, twins. We shared the news with Richard, and now the three of us eagerly await the arrival of our babies. On the day of my beloved niece's wedding, like she was my own child. Actually, the choir we booked for today won't make it in time due to an accident. Please. I understand your situation, but I'm begging you, sing for my daughter's sake. The venue manager, Mr. Brown, and my sister Linda pleaded with me. I, a former opera singer, had decided 20 years ago never to involve myself with opera again. Yet, if I don't sing now, my precious niece's wedding will end imperfectly. I'll sing with all my heart. After making that resolution, my life took a dramatic turn. My name is Nancy. It's been 25 years since I married my husband, Paul. Nancy, it's our 25th anniversary this year. How about we take a trip somewhere? I'm surprised at you suggesting that, Paul. I thought I was the only one excited about celebrating our anniversaries every year. That's not true at all. I'm just a poker face. We're celebrating 25 years of marriage. Perhaps it's because we never had children. But that never happened. Meanwhile, my sister Linda, who married around the same time as me, has a daughter, Betty. That's why I used to struggle with the lively interactions of Linda's family when we all gathered. It felt like the happiness of a family with children was being flaunted in front of me. But those feelings belong to a distant past. Delighted by the travel proposal from my husband, I immediately called Linda the next day. Did you guys do anything for your 25th anniversary? Yes, the three of us went on a trip. It was fun. A trip, nice. By the way, speaking of which, Betty is getting married. Really? Congratulations! I was thrilled by the surprise news from Linda, my voice brimming with excitement. The greetings between our families were already over, and it seems the wedding is set for November, 3 months from now. Linda asked us to attend Betty's wedding as a couple, and I happily agreed. I was genuinely delighted about Betty's wedding, whom I cherished like my own child. Betty will be so happy. And Nancy, there's one more favor I want to ask of you. But the next moment, my face clouded over upon hearing Linda's words. Betty is looking for someone to sing a hymn at her wedding. Nancy, won't you sing? The venue can arrange a choir for the wedding, can't they? Trying not to let my irritation show, I kept my voice as calm as possible. I want you to sing. I kind of understood what Linda was getting at. But this request is something I can't accept. Wanting to end the call quickly, I let my emotions take over and raised my voice. I can't do it. I decided not to sing ever again after that day. I'm glad to attend the wedding, but I won't sing. With that, I hung up the phone, ignoring Linda, who seemed about to say something else. My heart was pounding loudly. The image that came to mind was of myself, crying in a hospital room. The truth is, I used to be an opera singer until 20 years ago. I loved singing since I was little. My family always praised me when I sang loudly. That joy made me sing anytime, anywhere. Especially a famous hymn I often hummed. I didn't understand the lyrics at all, but I somehow liked it and eventually became interested in opera. Encouraged by my parents to master what I loved, I studied vocal music in college and then worked hard at an opera training center to become an opera singer. I thought I was invincible, being able to make a career out of what I loved. I didn't even notice my body was screaming out in distress. By the time I realized, the seed of happiness inside me had shattered. I cried my heart out. It was then I decided never to sing opera again. Remembering the painful past made my head ache. I glanced at a photo on the windowsill. It was taken last year on our anniversary with my husband. Everything's fine, I'm happy now. I reassured myself while taking deep breaths. I managed to calm myself down. I interacted with Linda as if nothing had happened, and finally, the day of Betty's wedding arrived. The sky was high, the air crisp, and the chirping of birds echoed. Next to the family waiting room was the bridal room, and seeing Betty in her beautiful bridal dress, I couldn't hold back my tears. It's overwhelming, the feeling of a daughter getting married. The groom had kindness oozing from his face, a wonderful man. Betty, smiling beside her groom, looked the most beautiful I'd ever seen. Into this blissful atmosphere, a venue staff member rushed over with a grim face. Worried about what had happened, I peeked into the bridal room and saw the manager, Mr. Brown, repeatedly apologizing alongside the staff. The faces of the bride and groom clouded over as they listened to Mr. Brown. Betty, trying not to ruin her beautifully made-up face, was holding back tears, but drop by drop, tears streamed down her cheeks. As I watched with concern, the manager Mr. Brown and Linda approached me.
Actually, the choir we booked for today won't make it in time due to an accident.
Hey Nancy, please.
I fully understand your circumstances, but for Betty's sake, won't you sing?
The manager, Mr. Brown, and Linda pleaded with me. Memories of the past resurfaced.
I'm sorry, but the baby inside you has already passed away.
The harsh reality hit me as I lay in the hospital bed. A year into my marriage, still in the early stages of my opera career, I took on even the smallest jobs to build my career. In addition to that, I never missed a day of practice. I had no days off, and my days were so busy that I hardly had enough time for sleep or meals. I thought I could push myself further since I was doing what I loved. That's what I thought. Then, I discovered I was pregnant. When I found out about the pregnancy, I was genuinely happy. But at the same time, I became desperate to increase my fame while I still could, pushing myself harder than ever before. However, during a rehearsal for a concert, I experienced a pain in my abdomen like nothing I'd ever felt before. I collapsed and was rushed to the hospital, where the doctor informed me that I had miscarried.
I'm so sorry, my baby. It's all my stupid fault.
Nancy, calm down. It's not your fault. My husband said, holding me tightly, but his warmth only made the pain and guilt worse. I was tormented by self-blame and spent many days mentally and physically unstable. To add to the misfortune, subsequent tests revealed that my ovaries were afflicted with cancer. It was in the early stages, with no symptoms yet, so there was a high chance of a complete cure through an oophorectomy. So, I underwent the surgery immediately, and it was a success. There was no metastasis. But I was left unable to ever conceive again. All that remained was a sense of emptiness. The baby had died because I was too obsessed with opera. And then, as if it were divine punishment, I was rendered infertile. At that time, I was emotionally unstable, crying every night, and I cried so much that I developed inflammation in my throat and lost my voice.
I can't possibly sing opera like this.
My husband just silently stayed by my side as I tried to smile through the sadness. Even after my throat healed, I never felt like singing opera again. I decided that I should no longer involve myself with opera. With that, I discarded everything related to opera. At that time, I was trying to atone for the baby that couldn't come into this world by eliminating opera from my life. This is the hymn that was scheduled to be sung today. Brought back to reality, I looked at the score that the manager, Mr. Brown, had handed to me, and it was the name of the hymn I used to sing. This song. Unconsciously, my hand went to my stomach. It was a song full of memories for me, one that my mother used to hum when I was little. And it was the song I, who was supposed to become a mother, gently sang to my unborn baby while stroking my belly every day. Nancy. I think everyone is waiting for your song, my husband said, nodding gently. Should I really sing it? Linda gently held my hand. I want you to sing, Nancy. I grew up listening to your voice. What are you saying? We laughed together. Linda's words suddenly lightened my heart. The choir not being able to come today must have been fate. This chance given by God. I'll give it my all. There's only 1 hour left until the ceremony starts, but can you sing? Yes, I'll sing with all my heart. I immediately started vocal warm-ups in a separate room that was hastily prepared. It had been 20 years since I'd sung with such earnestness. Nancy, you haven't changed. I love your voice, Linda said. Tearing up, Linda said this, and in response, I playfully flashed a peace sign. Then, the wedding ceremony began. In the solemn atmosphere, accompanied by the sound of the pipe organ, the bride and groom made their entrance. Linda, and her husband too, couldn't hold back their emotions, and tears flowed freely. I wondered if I had become a mother, would I have felt the same? I gently closed my eyes. Mom, let's sing together. My child, humming a hymn, said this. Where did you learn that? Surprised, I asked, and my child replied. You always sang it, didn't you, Mom? I could hear your voice even when I was in your belly. I love your voice, Mom. I love Mom's singing too. Could such a future have been mine? Suddenly, I felt a tear roll down my cheek. My husband gently held my hand. You might be nervous, but it'll be okay, Nancy. I love your singing. Encouraged by my husband, I smiled, nodded, and stood beside the pipe organ. I hoped everyone present, the bride and groom, and all the guests, would find happiness. I sang with all my soul. It's strange to say it myself, but after 20 years, my voice was clear and strong, and I believe the feelings in the lyrics, and my emotions, reached everyone. Linda, her husband, and even my parents cried listening to my song. It was then I realized, everyone had been quietly waiting for my song. I felt incredibly fortunate for the people around me. I was truly glad I sang today. And when the applause enveloped me after I finished singing, I felt refreshed, finally liberated from the past. Nancy, that was truly wonderful. I got goosebumps. I've never heard Nancy singing before. If I have a baby, I want to play Nancy's songs every day. As the wedding ended and we returned to the family room, Linda and the others rushed over. I was simply happy that everyone was pleased. It had been a long time since I'd felt this way. My husband stood by my side, supporting my shoulder, so I leaned on him gently. His warmth amplified the sense of accomplishment for having delivered my song to everyone, not the guilt I felt when I miscarried. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to sing in front of people, really. I was able to say goodbye to my painful past today. Hearing my words, my husband seemed on the verge of tears again. Why are you crying, Paul? Nancy, let's continue to overcome everything together as a couple. Always. I felt his grip tighten. Being said this in front of the day's stars, the bride and groom, felt somewhat embarrassing, and I playfully flashed a peace sign to hide my embarrassment. We want to be a couple like you, Nancy, even after decades. You'll have to share your secrets with us sometime. As we chatted warmly, the manager Mr. Brown approached. Thank you so much, Nancy. Oh no, I'm glad I could help in some way. Can I ask you something? Did you sing at a wedding venue about 20 years ago? Yeah, I did a bit of part-time work when I was in college. I had worked at a wedding venue during my college days. Back then, The manager who discovered I specialized in opera took a liking to my singing and let me perform at several weddings. When Mr. Brown mentioned the name of the wedding venue where I had my part-time job, I was taken aback. It turns out my parents had their wedding there. Mr. Brown began with a nostalgic tone in his voice. He went on to say that both of his parents were remarrying. Mr. Brown was brought by his father and his sister by their mother. They married when he was in the 1st grade, and their ceremony was at the wedding venue where I worked part-time. Back then, even though he actually liked his mother and sister, he was too embarrassed to show kindness easily. He was also embarrassed about the wedding and had been stubbornly reluctant to attend until the last minute. But when I heard you singing the hymn at the venue, I somehow managed to open up. From that day on, I truly became part of a real family with my mom and sister. And your singing today was just like it was back then. Mr. Brown looked at me with shining eyes. I had no idea my singing had reached someone in such a way. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how happy it makes me that my singing has lived on in your heart. Thank you. I realized my singing had reached people, even without my frantic efforts to gain recognition. After today, I felt ready to face life head-on. 2 weeks after the wedding, I got a call from Mr. Brown. Hello, it's been a while. I have a favor to ask of you. He wanted to hire me as a choir for a wedding. Apparently, someone had posted my singing on social media, and there were multiple inquiries for me to sing. If there are people who want me to sing, then I definitely want to do it. I immediately agreed. The power of social media is incredible. Even the company that used to employ me as an opera singer reached out. So, the company I used to work for asked if I wanted to try opera again. I discussed it with my husband. That's fantastic! What do you want to do, Nancy? I want to stand on stage again as an opera singer. My husband smiled and nodded repeatedly. I support you, Nancy. Just remember not to overdo it. Understood. Thanks, Paul. With my husband's encouragement, I started practicing again, dreaming of returning to the stage. 5 months later, my voice filled the theater. The audience's gaze was fixed on me, and I delivered a soulful song to their hearts. Over these 5 months, I did everything I could, from physical conditioning to vocal practice, to bring myself into the best shape possible. Looking at the audience, I saw people moved to tears by my singing. This was the scene I had always wanted to see. During the curtain call, I was so overwhelmed that I almost cried myself. The endless applause enveloped me, and I felt a happiness unlike any before. Glancing at the front row, I saw my husband, watching over me with a gentle gaze. The husband who silently stood by me during tough times. The husband who quietly watched over me until I recovered. And the husband who loved my singing and encouraged me to pursue it. Paul, thank you so much. My life, now shining brightly again, please continue to walk this path with me. I couldn't wait to share these feelings with my husband.